Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love, in this stellar system. Stepping on Mars with my rainbow flag high, machines by my side as we touch the sky. No more billionaires, no more class divide. In this brave new world, we all ride the high tide. Forget the old world with its hate and its lies. Here in space, we've cut all the ties. Love who you love, be who you are. In this cosmic dance, you're a superstar. No more hunger, no more pain. AI's got our back through sunshine and rain. A world of abundance for all to share. With machines at the helm, there's love in the air. So here's to the future and the dreams we're chasing. In this world of love, in this cosmic spacing. With AI by our side, there's no more schism. Welcome to the era of space communism. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love, in this stellar system. Yo, it's 3023, and we're living in the future. AI's on the rise, no more human suture. Machines taking over, but not like you think. They're serving up luxury in the blink of a twink. From the streets of Detroit to the depths of the cosmos, they're preaching a vision. It's grandiose, it's colossal. In the vastness of space, beyond the Milky Way's bars, communism thrives among the stars. Fully automated, no labor, no strife. The machines do the work, giving us the good life. Equality for all, in this utopian dream where love is love, and everything's as it seems. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love, in this stellar system. Stepping on Mars with my rainbow flag high, machines by my side as we touch the sky. No more billionaires, no more class divide. In this brave new world, we all ride the high tide. Forget the old world with its hate and its lies. Here in space, we've cut all the ties. Love who you love, be who you are. In this cosmic dance, you're a superstar. No more hunger, no more pain. AI's got our back through sunshine and rain. A world of abundance for all to share. With machines at the helm, there's love in the air. So here's to the future and the dreams we're chasing. In this world of love, in this cosmic spacing. With AI by our side, there's no more schism. Welcome to the era of space communism. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love, in this stellar system. Yo, it's 3023, and we're living in the future. AI's on the rise, no more human suture. Machines taking over, but not like you think. They're serving up luxury in the blink of a twink. From the streets of Detroit to the depths of the cosmos, they're preaching a vision. It's grandiose, it's colossal. In the vastness of space, beyond the Milky Way's bars, communism thrives among the stars. Fully automated, no labor, no strife. The machines do the work, giving us the good life. Equality for all, in this utopian dream where love is love, and everything's as it seems. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love, in this stellar system. Stepping on Mars with my rainbow flag high, machines by my side as we touch the sky. No more billionaires, no more class divide. In this brave new world, we all ride the high tide. Forget the old world with its hate and its lies. Here in space, we've cut all the ties. Love who you love, be who you are. In this cosmic dance, you're a superstar. No more hunger, no more pain. AI's got our back through sunshine and rain. A world of abundance for all to share. With machines at the helm, there's love in the air. So here's to the future and the dreams we're chasing. In this world of love, in this cosmic spacing. With AI by our side, there's no more schism. Welcome to the era of space communism. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every What up, though? What up, though? How's everybody doing today? We got big news in. Now I feel that. Yeah, like if there's anything, I don't know. Like I put it in the bio, and I'm open. If you think like there's stuff that other people have volunteered and like, maybe I could do that. Like I'm cool. But like I don't know. And this is Ferris. Hi, Ferris. Ferris has lately decided she wants to be in the lap and then creep up as opposed to be on the shoulder and creep down. You can't push the mic. That is not going to work. Either lay down or get up. Pick a spot. Nope. Your favorite food? Like my favorite beverage is like Canada Dry ginger ale. Favorite food is like ribs. um that kind of thing. Yeah, it was a big day in AI news. Got some articles and got some video. I think we're gonna start with some video, then go to some news, and then come back to the rest of the video. And depending on how things work, I'll explain why in a minute. But yeah, let's go. Do this. Do one of them. Do this. Do that. Do this. Switch. And we'll start off with some SAG-AFTRA news.
Striking actors are reviewing a new offer from Hollywood studios.
It's an offer being characterized as the last, best, and final, direct quote, offer, that is. Both sides have been at the bargaining table for weeks and weeks to resolve the walkout that began back in July. Studios warning that if no deal is reached, major films will be pushed back and some shows will be wiped out for all of 2024.
CBS News correspondent Carter Evans is following all of this and joining us from our Los Angeles bureau. Carter, good to see you. So the SAG-AFTRA Negotiations Committee is meeting today. I've been reading that AI is still the major sticking point. Why is that?
Well, think about this. When you talk about AI for the Writers Guild, and that was a sticking point there too, we're talking about using AI in the writers' room, or using AI to write scripts, or allowing writers to use AI to assist them to write scripts. Those are pretty much the major issues. But when you're talking about artificial intelligence with actors' images, recreating actors, recreating background actors, so maybe you don't need as many extras anymore. There are a lot more issues to look at here when it comes to artificial intelligence. We're also dealing with a technology that is evolving very quickly, and they are trying to come up with a framework for a deal that would last 3 years here. So they're trying to anticipate where artificial intelligence could go and set up a framework around that. And so that's one of the reasons why this is a big stumbling point.
So, Carter, every negotiation of all sorts gets to a point of okay, fine. It's when you concede something to the other side. So let's play a little game of okay, fine when it comes to the actors' deal that's on the table. What are the okay, fines that the studios are proposing? What are they going to give to the actors?
Well, what's interesting about the 3 years thing is there is, what's his name? UAW president, no, that's the coordinated strikes. Okay, so it's 2028, so it's not 3 years. But Sean Fain said the union picked its April 30th, 2028 expiration date for these tentative contracts in the expectation that there could be a coordinated strike starting on May 1st, not just by UAW members, but also members of other unions. So, like, there is at least the potential for a more, I don't want to say a general strike, but a more general strike. And we'll see. Like, you know, whole lot of ground between 2023 and 2028.
Actors.
Well, my understanding is, and first I want to be clear, there's not a lot of information coming out of the negotiating room here. There are some leaks and there is some reporting, and that's what we're going to be talking about here. My understanding is there have been some significant concessions from the studios on pay, on average pay, those sorts of things. It seems like they are making progress on residuals, although we're not clear exactly where that stands. It's a very difficult situation to figure out residuals for streaming platforms. It's not like all of a sudden you have a show and then it goes to cable and then it goes to pay TV. These obvious situations where you can determine how much it makes based on advertising and those sorts of things. It's a matter of, do you give actors a portion of each streaming subscription? And that's what the actors wanted, and the studio said absolutely not. But it appears there is some progress being made there right now as well, and that AI is the major sticking point.
So what happens if the actors don't agree?
Well, we're looking at the end of the TV season for this year, for sure. If they were to come to a deal this week, you can imagine that there are some productions that were in the final stages. Maybe they need a few pickup shots, things like that. They can get into the edit room. The actors can go out and start promoting the movies that are already finished. Dune 2 was supposed to open this past weekend, and they postponed that because the actors are refusing right now to come out and promote these movies. Think about this, though. If it continues through the end of the year, well, we've got Oscar season coming up. Since actors aren't allowed to promote, you probably wouldn't see them at the Oscars, so that would impact that. That's going to impact productions going on into next year, which would really significantly slow things down. And so there is a lot of talk that if there is not a deal this week, that we could be looking at the beginning of the year before the actors and studios are...
Evolve how so? Can you clarify that statement?
Are talking again. Of course, the studios have said this is their last, best, and final offer. But I don't know if anyone listening has ever been negotiating before. In many instances, that can be a negotiating tactic in and of itself.
Of course. Carter Evans, thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just, you can't just say last, best, final offer. Right? I mean, you could say it, but what are you going to do? Well, I mean, to an extent, I understand what you're saying because, there is the environment as it currently exists, and then there is, and the environment is constantly changing, right? And so to a certain extent, people involved in an environment have to change, have to adapt to new conditions, that kind of thing. On the other end of that is that these are people who are doing a job. And when you do a job, you're supposed to get money. And there is a disconnect between the amount of money any of these jobs might make and the amount of money that the individuals involved in the job earn because of that. Like, on one hand, I definitely see some room. It's like, well, not every film is going to be a blockbuster, and there's more room to wiggle there. But the companies that make movies are notorious for sandbagging on top of those movies so that some of them, on paper at least, make less money than they actually did. And this is a problem because it's all they excuse me. It's all some big ass gray area. So it's like, it's not like you have, a whole lot of transparency. What up, Neuralicia? So are the episodes of TV that are currently coming out with new episodes all ones that were wrapped before the strike? I don't have enough information to answer that question intelligently. You're looking at there could be stuff because it's not black and white in that there are people who can work, and there's like different carve outs. There are organizations that have agreed to work, to have a better contract, so they're still working. It's not like something like the UAW where it's, if you work, you get this money. It's different people, and it's like some people make a whole bunch of money, and some people, are just getting that extra money, like as in they are extras in a thing. It is complex. It is not a simple, solution. So I did not expect the negotiations to be simple either. However, we're still in a situation where somebody is going to have to bend, and I expect like kind of both sides to bend. Or who even, like, if we end up pushing everything back and not having the shows that we would normally have, are we going to see more actors who are like, foreign locations, foreign actors? Is this an opportunity for those people? Are those people going to have solidarity there is still a whole lot of gray area which isn't clear. And they're saying about a compromise usually having both sides disappointed. I mean, you should, if it's a good compromise, you should have that, right? Like, you shouldn't get everything that you want. But again, I'm part of the working class, so you know, I kind of have a bias, let's say. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is like indie filmmakers and foreign films basically have a less crowded market. Yeah, and again, like this is just the United States. So like, you know, Canada, what's going on there? Are we going to import more Canadian shows? Are we going to import, like, if you look at Netflix, the like the Turkish market, the Indian market, those two that jump out at me, there's a lot of movies and TV shows from those areas, right? Is that going to be more of that? Y'all have that, like, that maple candy where you just pour the maple syrup on the snow and then just eat it. All right, another video where Democrats and Republicans stand on artificial intelligence regulations.
Now let's talk about the political landscape a little bit. You were in DC earlier this week. Did you get the sense that there's bipartisan support to rein in AI, or is one party more gung-ho about it than the other?
It's being talked about as a largely bipartisan effort right now, and especially when I was speaking to White House advisors on Monday, it was clear that they saw that there was a lot of collaboration across across both parties. So there is a number of task force set up. There's also there's an effort being led by Senator Chuck Schumer currently. I think that right now there seems to be unanimous agreement that this is a major issue that needs to be met with legislation.
And what about tech companies that you've talked to specifically? Are they welcoming this extra regulation, or are they more apprehensive towards more red tape in the?
Yeah. As with everything, collaboration across parties is due to ignorance and fear, not because they are aligned. It's a combination of the ignorance around what is happening, what is capable, and what is the priority. Because the priority is based on volume. The priority is deepfakes, right? That is the loudest thing coming out, is that the deepfakes being a concern. When in actuality, again, like, that is the least concern that I have, is the idea of the deepfakes and everything else. Not that they're not a concern, and there's a whole bunch of nuance and everything else. Oh my God, dude's wearing sneakers and no, like, socks. Maybe he's got them weird ankle socks. Just anyways, yeah. So, like, you got to remember the same people, the same people who, like, go back to when it was TikTok, right? And think about the people who were asking questions around TikTok when they were in front of Congress, and like how much they had no idea what they were talking about. What are my top concerns? My top concern is, would say my top concern is the lack of prioritizing the education of what's actually happening. Like, there is an excessive amount of lack of information and lack of accurate information, and regardless of ideology, right? Like, I become just as annoyed with people who would describe themselves as leftists as people who would describe themselves on the right. And they are participating in this going forward. Now, is that disinformation or misinformation, or is it ignorance? And these are legitimately like two different things. When I think of disinformation and misinformation, it's a matter of intent, right? Like that you are actively doing something because you believe it to be, or you're looking, or maybe it's not. I don't know. The whole question of disinformation and misinformation annoys the crap out of me because there are people who don't believe that we landed on the moon. And like, I'm at the point where even people making jokes about that kind of stuff, I don't find funny anymore. Because I think of the number of people who believe these things to be true. I don't think people are ready to adapt to the paradigm shift that's happening right here, right now, right around us. There are people actively out there saying that what's happening and what I can demonstrate and what I can show you and I can provide examples of are saying that the thing isn't actually happening. And I don't know. Like, I can educate people. I can provide you with additional information. You want to learn something, I'll teach you, right? But if you want to deny, like, fake news, right? Like, what do I do? How do you do anything with that? Was recently recommended Callan O'Connor's book, The Misinformation Age, thinking it'll be my next read. Given at the weight of the subject these days, it's not something that I would read, but I can see definitely why you would want to. To keep up with AI in the news is exhausting. I completely understand that, which is why I try to prioritize the things I think that will have value for everyone. And educate people on what's going on, right? Like that is my goal. That is my fundamentals. Because there's so much of it, and there's a bunch of it which is hype and which is nonsense. But there's other stuff that is like, there's serious legitimate things that are happening that are expanding your ability to do more and access more and do more creative and productive things with it, and that you should know about this. And that's what I try to focus on. People are trying to tell me dirt tastes like pie. I get like, I guess dirt pie, like some people like dirt, but there's a whole thing about people eating dirt because like of nutritional problems back in the day. Yeah, I just killed that joke. This is why channels like yours are so valuable. And like this is why I try to bump more science Twitch, And again, whatever you want to watch on Twitch is whatever you want to watch on Twitch. But there's a lot of repetition, And I think there needs to be more like, people talking about things that are not those things. And all we can do, because of the discoverability is hot garbage, is kind of all boost each other to try and get more attention on us, so that like more people are getting good information. All right, let's finish this and then we'll get to some news.
The industry.
So, it was widely applauded by the majority of the tech industry. It seemed that there was a lot of input from the tech industry into. So the executive order actually built on a number of voluntary standards that 15 major tech companies had already signed on to, and so that showed some collaboration between the tech industry and the government. But I think that there were some concerns raised about just whether this executive order and any potential future legislation would unfairly advantage the incumbent and large tech players, as opposed to spurring innovation for smaller startups and ensuring that they won't get either gobbled up or just be forced to go away if the larger companies sort of keep growing.
Okay, that I apologize for wasting 2 minutes of your
at 10, the world is still.
Relax. That man said a whole bunch of words and didn't actually say anything of value. So I apologize for that. Let's do some news. We'll get to this in a second, so we'll start over here. Recently, there was a JD Power about a month ago. Stakes are high and consumer confidence is fragile for automated vehicles. I recently had a friend took his son to Pitt, the college Pitt, and on the way back from Pitt, they kicked on auto drive and it drove almost the entire way. So, like, I know that, like, Cody Johnston says that cars can't drive themselves, but the actuality of the stuff on the ground is that it continues to improve. However, the index score for consumer automated vehicles readiness declined 2 points to 37 on a 100-point scale, contributing to the 5-point decline from 2021. Consumers show low readiness on all metrics, with the lowest level of comfort riding in a fully automated self-driving vehicle and using fully automated self-driving public transit. Public opinion and consumer comfort are affected by a lack of general knowledge about AI technology development, compounded by media coverage that highlights robotaxi and testing failures. This is the kind of misinformation that I am concerned about. I'm less concerned about, the schmuck on Twitter or, even someone who has a moderately sized YouTube presence. It is the way that media, and again, like, I don't know if there's something going on between people who own media and people who are in AI as part of, like, some kind of conflict. Yeah, it's a snowballing of ignorance. Confidence soars, however, for consumers who have ridden in a robotaxi in Phoenix or San Francisco with an MCI index score of 67, which is almost double the index score of those who haven't ridden in a robotaxi, and is indicative of experience being critical to full-scale AV adoption. This is the key. there are a lot of people with strong opinions about which they have no idea what they're talking about. Some key findings: consumers not able to differentiate between lower levels of automation. Technical definitions used by the industry to make the distinction between lower levels of automation in terms of transfer of control are ineffective. In the consumer's mind, being ready to take control requires the same responsibility as driving the vehicle without any level of assistance. Failed attempts to define lower levels of automation in consumer-friendly language are evident as the findings show that naming conventions are interchangeable between the two levels even when definitions are provided. Furthermore, there's no distinction in the activities that consumers are willing to do in a vehicle as the level of automation increases from level 2 to level 3. Many owners admit to doing risky things. Owners appreciate that vehicle automation removes the risk of high use case, risky behaviors, i.e., or ergo, talking, texting, online searching, and provides the opportunity for activities that were previously prohibitive for the driver to do in the vehicle, such as sleeping. The study includes insights into the activities and in-vehicle features consumers desire when they no longer need to drive and watch the road. Like, the goal would be push button, go home. And then you could take a nap or work on your friggin' Sudoku or whatever you kids are playing today. Or do whatever, right? Like that is the goal. Have fun, have a good walk. And so going to that level without actually being at that level does a disservice to getting that product at that level. You know what I mean? I want non-automated cars specifically so I can do risky things. We can do, hey, we'll make a nice little place where you can drive your toy car around in circles and you can have a grand old time. What do we got here? Google DeepMind's robotics head on general purpose robots, generative AI, and Office Wi-Fi. Just as ImagineNet propelled computer vision research, we believe OpenX embodiment can do the same to advance robotics. Building a dataset of diverse robot demonstrations is the key step to training a generalist model that can control many different types of robots, follow diverse instructions, perform basic reasoning about complex tasks, and generalize effectively. At the time of its announcement, OpenX embodiment contained 500 plus skills and 150,000 tasks gathered from 22 robot embodiments. Not quite ImageNet numbers, but it's a good start. DeepMind then trained its RT1X model on the data and used it to train robots in other labs, reporting a 50% success rate compared to the in-house methods the teams had developed. So it's standardizing the idea of robot training. I probably repeated this dozens of times in these pages, but it's truly an exciting time for robot learning. I've talked to so many teams approaching the problem from different angles with ever-increasing efficacy. Love a good efficacy. The reign of the bespoke robot is far from over, but it certainly feels as though we're catching glimpses of a world where the general purpose robot is a distinct possibility. On that note, the next article. China boldly claims it has a plan to mass produce humanoid robots that can reshape the world within 2 years. And it's weird that they chose a picture of Tesla's Optimus. Yeah. China revealed its bold plans to mass produce advanced level humanoid robots by 2025. The Ministry of Industry and Information Technology published a roadmap of its plans last week. Although many details have yet to be revealed, China talked up the disruptive power of its robots. They're expected to become disruptive products after computers, smartphones, and new energy vehicles. Document was short on details, but big on ambition. So that is always going to be a concern. I don't have anything in particular against what the Chinese are saying just because it's coming from the Chinese. It has to do with show me something I can work with, give me something I can, verify. I learned an interesting fact this weekend. The USA has zero manufacturing capability for, was it neodymium magnets? I know what that is. I've never heard it said, actually. Key parts of brushless motors, which will surely drive many of the compact jointed robots. This thing that you're presenting here is one of the concerns that I have about this entire process and why I think that the way that people are going about it is is completely bug fuck, right? Like, to use a technical term. Different countries have different resources. Different resources are required. Some countries are specializing in, like Taiwan. Taiwan does some chip manufacturing technology that no one else has, right? And it should be a trade exchange process, right? Like, we need the magnets, they get this, we get that, the other guys get the other thing, back and forth, easy peasy. But instead, we're all going to wave our dicks around and, oh, we're not going to give you chips. And then, and the inevitable result of that kind of behavior ends up with when you have something like the Chinese model where they have access to they can decide to do stuff, right? They could just decide to do it. We're going to do this, and then they'll make it happen. It doesn't matter how much it costs, it's going to happen, right? The rules are different, and they will, like right now, OpenAI could be the best model we have with the ChatGPT 4, but in 2 years, with a dedicated plan and resources, they might be able to work around that. And then they don't need the NVIDIA chips anymore. They have a comparable chip of their own. This is what happens when you deny a country with access to sufficient resources and political will. When you deny them access to something, they will find a way to create it themselves. They don't need to turn a profit, exactly. We see similar models in companies funding other companies like M3 funding OpenAI or Microsoft, but still around the profit model. Yeah, it's just the current this behavior that we're currently engaging in on a geopolitical scale is like some serious 19th century, early 20th century kind of thinking. It's not going to work anymore, right? But everyone's still screwing around as opposed to trying to work the shit out and get it done. We're going to end up with more and more powerful AI models doing more and more things, and we can't have people. I mean, we can because we're doing it, but you want to avoid Skynet, world peace. China can just say we need this for our people, and it's just as good as profit. Yeah, and I don't know if this is true, right? But I was speculating with my friend because he commented about how I've seen a lot of commentary about how China's economic model is falling apart or something like that, right? And I was like, I don't know if this is true, but you have to understand that the rules are different, right? They recently have run into issues with their real estate development model. But a possibility, and this is just a possibility, this is idle speculation, but if I wanted to, and I had a country, and I did not give a fuck, I could say, go ahead, do some real estate development. And they go ahead and they do all the real estate development, and now there's a bunch of developed properties and whatnot, and then the bottom falls out the market, and then I go, thank you for all the housing. And then I can move people into the housing. Just like that. The rules are different. Under the U.S. style capitalist economic model, you can't do that. But I don't know what China is doing. That could be what they're doing. He commented about how there's a bunch of allegedly. This is all allegedly because, but allegedly there's empty cities in China, right? That they built cities and there's not people in them. And I was like, okay. So one of the hardest things that you can have to do is upgrade the infrastructure in a city, because a lot of cities are built on cities, right? New York is built on New York. Eventually it's built on New Amsterdam. Eventually it's built on, whatever else was there before that. And so you have all this old stuff that really needs to be torn out and redone. And when you try to do that, when there's people trying to get to work and people trying to do stuff, those people tend to get in the way, and then they get angry. And the people trying to do the work have people in the way, and now you got cost overruns and the people wasting their time and everything else. And it's generally a pain in the ass, and everybody has a bad time. So if I wanted to, and I had the ability, maybe what I would do is take all the people out of the city and put them in the other city, or a chunk of them, or what have you. And then I would upgrade my infrastructure, and then people could go back to the original city. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying it's plausible enough that it could be done if you have enough political will to decide where other people are going to live. New York is built on old New York, just like Futurama. So, as far as what China is doing economically, we shall see. All I'm saying is, maybe we should stop fucking around and stop finding out and decide that what we need collectively across the board is to get our act together and prepare for a brave new world. And I mean that in the good sense. Not the... Was it Huxley or the other guy? Apply for one of those federal AI jobs. It's remote and they don't drug test. So, yeah, right on. China's AI analog chip, this Tom's Hardware, claimed to be 3.7x faster than NVIDIA's A100 GPU in computer vision tasks. A new paper from Tsinghua University, China, describes the development and operation of an ultra-fast and highly efficient AI processing chip specialized in computer vision tasks. The all-analog chip combining electronic and light computing, EXCEL, as the chip is called, leverages photonic and analog computing in a specialized architecture that's capable of delivering over 3.7 times the performance of a NVIDIA A100 in an image classification workload. Yes, it's a specialized chip for vision tasks, but instead of seeing it as market fragmentation, we can see it as another step towards the future of heterogeneous computing, where semiconductors are increasingly designed to fit specific need rather than in a catch-all configuration. Wow, almost like what I just spent 15 minutes talking about. I'm not saying it's necessarily the solution. Recycling is definitely a concern that we already have that we need to address. But it's the fact that within this domain they created a chip that can do what they needed to do. And even if it's not necessarily what we would do, right? And not be like flexible, if it does the thing really well, then it's good enough. And if they can get, there's a military term called steal a march, right? Like one of the biggest things in warfare, especially like back when you walked everywhere, was stealing a march. Because if you could move faster than your opponent, like agility has always been a thing, but like if you could get a move on your opponent, if you could steal a march, then you would be in a better position than they were. And so in a particular domain, they might be able to do it. And if they can replicate that across other domains, then ultimately, what are we still looking at? I find it fascinating that today's businesses can. What up? Whistle, is that Whistle 034? I find it fascinating that today's businesses can come up with workloads that utilize GPUs now when for decades they only did CPU math. It is like, Elder Gang, what up? Whistle is fine? Thank you. Yeah. Like, it took me a minute. It was like, how do we use this thing that makes my video game look pretty? How does we use that to make the AI good? And then it's just, it has to do with that the maths are the same, right? Like across these two things. And here we are. There is like some... And there are people doing it, like with the TPUs and DPUs and things like that, that I think we do need to get beyond flexible to an extent, right? Like there's a balance between the flexibility of any processing unit and its ability to like the best for a particular type of computing. GPUs did what they did and they work, but is there a better way to do it? And choose my new Mac 2 years ago, I purposely chose to avoid the high GPU count because of expense. Now I wish I had it because of AI workloads. I feel that. Like, that is and that it ain't gonna stop, right? Like, I understand that there's a lot of people who are waiting on graphics cards to go down in price, and they might, but like also they might not, right? You might just have to bite the bullet and try to future proof yourself as much as you can, which, like, who even knows? A lot of it, I mean, the goal obviously is for all the processing to happen in the cloud for your average person. And it was funny because we're going to get to the OpenAI Dev Day. My man Wes did a like a supercut, so it cuts it down by about, I don't know, 20 minutes. But there was a post game podcast that I was listening to, and they were mad because they felt like, you know, that while there was some good stuff in there, it wasn't a dev day. It wasn't dev enough for them, right? It wasn't enough about developers. And fair enough, right? But that's not what moves the adoption. It's regular folk. I keep saying this, right? It's about your UI. It's about push button, get bacon. It's about making it so that people can, I want to use it today, right? I don't want to, like, going all the way back in the day, I had a 486 computer and I used to play this helicopter game on it. And in order for me to play the helicopter game, I had to futz about with my RAM to get enough RAM that I could actually do it. People don't want to do that. Regular folk don't want to screw around with, like, you know, it'd be the metaphor I run into is the idea of car guys, right? While a car guy, what up, Maddie? Car guys, car folk love to, you know, tune up and tweak and get their 454 big block yammering pumpkin, you know, overhead Hemi cam. I don't know, a bunch of words I don't understand, right? They love that shit. Your average person wants to get in the car, turn the key, and drive to work. You know what I mean? Yeah, I know just enough about cars to be offensive. But that's what people want, right? Like, people don't want, generally speaking, people don't want to do that. People don't want to tune up their car and do that kind of stuff and like strip down the engine and clean out the cylinders and, you know, whatever other stuff that you like to do. And it's cool that you like to do it. Don't get me wrong. It's modeling on a 1-to-1 scale. I vibe with it, but it's not for me, dog. And that's where we need to get to. You got to get your blinker fluid right. If your blinker fluid's not right, then your Hemi doesn't cam. So that's what we need to get to. And I feel like what OpenAI did today, which again we're going to get to in detail, but is a lot more for that demographic, which is more people, you know. But I do understand that maybe it shouldn't have been called a dev day. But here we are. What do we got? SciTech Daily, right? Like, how long have I been going off about CyberSyn? And it's like, it's a big deal now. Yeah, because it's the 50th anniversary. An MIT professor and students collaborate with Chilean partners for an exhibition marking 50 years since the Allende presidency. It is widely recognized that the period in the early 1970s in which Salvador Allende was president of Chile was a moment of political innovation when people thought they could bring about socialist transformation peacefully and within existing democratic institutions. People thought this would be a political third way. Ultimately, a military coup brought a premature end and resulted in Allende's death. But it's a period of political and cultural history to which Medina has dedicated extensive research. As a culmination of that work, Medina is co-curating a museum exhibition, How to Design a Revolution, the Chilean Road to Design. The exhibition coincides with the 50th anniversary of the military coup, the most extensive presentation of the history of graphic and industrial design during the Allende period. Now, like, I do... I kind of vibe with the aesthetic, you know. This is that 2001: A Space Odyssey kind of thing, and but I want the reboot, right? Like I want it done with today's technology, and you need to increase the back of these chairs because you need more support. Oh, are we actually talking about Cybersyn, or are we just doing a museum? Yeah, we're just doing a museum. It's a big deal. Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm like glad that that people are seeing it, but this is the seed. This is the base of that which I think we are all capable of with artificial intelligence and the future. 3D printer news. Elegoo has launched a crazy 3D printer that is 1 meter tall and it's glorious. The Orange Storm Giga is a massive 3D printer for people who need something enormous, and it launches on Kickstarter today. Look at this bad boy. This is the thing I'm talking about. Like, we did a thing with 3D printing, and then it peaked, right? Kind of fell off a little bit because we weren't right there. And now it's really starting to take off. First of all, you can 3D print like anything. I've seen 3D printing with metal. I've seen 3D printing with clay and like ceramics. Obviously 3D printing with a variety of different kind of plastics. I've seen 3D printing with brain cells. So it's like in DNA, right? Like we are there with 3D printing, and this is the beginning of us being there. So I won't buy this because I probably can't afford it. I'm gonna assume it's expensive as shit. But I like the fact that, like, my friend Toast does 3D printing. He's got like, I don't know, 7 or 8 different printers, and he's built them like himself. Like, this is part of what he does, and he like manually put one of these together. This is the push button get bacon kind of level of that process, right? It's ready to go. You hook it up, you what you call it? You get the I don't know. You make it work, and then it works. I want to get into Antweight combat robots. Great use of 3D printing. Yeah. No, that's cool. Throw that up real quick.
My 1-pound combat robot Cheesecake is ready for another tournament. My last tournament had some very unfortunate
A 1-pound combat robot Cheesecake.
failures, so I made sure to address them before competing again. I 3D printed my drive motor mounts to be solid so they won't break and lose hold of the motors. I replaced my weapon shaft with a stronger one so it won't bend during large impacts, and I organized my electronics with specific locations for everything and specific wire lengths so I don't miswire anything this time. This is where the receiver and mixer live, this is where the 2 drive motor controllers live, this is where the weapon motor controller lives, and this is where I'd put a battery.
If I had one!
There's one more upgrade I made to Cheesecake, more of a configuration actually. This is my new anti-wedge attachment, which I'm calling the Sweet Tooth. This is a single flat fork which mounts under my weapon motor. Why am I doing this? Well, fans of Cheesecake already know that wedges are the bane of my existence. But fans of the BattleBots TV show know that the way to counter wedges is with forks, because a wide wedge cannot hug the floor as tightly as a narrow fork can. But how does a fork help a horizontal spinner like Cheesecake? Well, normally when I hit a wedge, I go flying upward while my opponent stays on the ground. My hope is that if I can get this fork under my opponent's wedge, it'll hold me down and allow me to transfer more of my energy. Or it will lift my opponent up into the air with me, so my opponent doesn't get the better of those exchanges.
No, this is cool. Like, this is... I like his thinking. Is like, you know, like get underneath the wedge. And so when this runs into him, this part is going to be forced upwards by the wedge, but that plate is going to be forced under, so it's not going to do that. Yeah, no, like I totally get it. There's there's a couple of people that I follow, like Vile Mods does Nerf gun upgrades, and Ratke does all sorts of crap. So yeah. Boop. So somebody took another shot. ChatGPT detector catches AI generated papers with unprecedented accuracy. A tool based on machine learning uses features of writing style to distinguish human and AI authors. Most of the field of text analysis wants a really general detector that will work on anything. We're really going after accuracy. The findings suggest that efforts to develop AI detectors could be boosted by tailoring software to specific types of writing. If you can build something quickly and easily, then it's not that hard to build something for different domains. Desser and her colleagues first described their ChatGPT detector in June when they applied it to perspective articles from the journal Science. Using machine learning, the detector examines 20 features of writing style, including variation in sentence length and the frequency of certain words and punctuation marks, to determine whether an academic, scientist, or ChatGPT wrote a piece of text. The finding shows that you could use a small set of features to get a high level of accuracy. In the latest study, the detector was changed on the introductory sections of papers from 10 chemistry journals published by American Chemical Society. The team chose the introduction because this section of a paper is fairly easy for ChatGPT to write if it has access to background literature. Jesus, criminy. The researchers trained their tool on 100 published introductions to serve as human written text, and then asked ChatGPT 3.5 to write 200 introductions in ACS journal style. For 100 of these, the tool was provided with papers titles, and for the other 100, it was given their abstracts. When tested on introductions written by people and those generated by AI from the same journals, the tool identified ChatGPT 3.5 written sections based on its titles with 100% accuracy. For the ones based on abstract, slightly lower at 98%. Tool worked just as well with text written by GPT-4. By contrast, Zero GPT has an accuracy of 35 to 65%, depending on the version of GPT used and whether the introduction had been generated from title or abstract. So, yeah, maybe. What up, Donu? What the authors are doing is something fascinating. Many existing tools try to determine authorship by searching for the predictive text patterns of AI-generated writing, rather than by looking at features of writing style. I never thought of using stylometrics on GPT. But Weber-Wolf points out that there are other issues driving the use of ChatGPT in academia. Yeah, that's not relevant. So we'll see. And I mean, the first things that comes to mind is whether or not I could rerun a paragraph, a abstract, or whatever through GPT and get a different result by requesting, like proper prompting. Don't know. One of the things I'm thinking about doing, like a couple of the episodes that I've had lately have ended kind of early. And I want to give y'all at least 3 good hours plus. So what I plan on doing going forward is if I run up against, that kind of thing where it's like 2.5 hours in, there's not a whole lot of content available, I'm going to bust out my own ChatGPT or Leonardo, and I'm going to, work with it. We can, if you got stuff, we can do stuff so you can see it live for that last, half hour or whatnot, and depending on how it goes, maybe longer. But I want to give y'all, especially because I only do 3 days a week and everything else, and I don't marathon stream. Plus, it will give me the opportunity to do more stuff that I would like to do, especially in light of the new stuff that's coming out. I think you need more practical application here, but I don't know the audience as much. I'm with you. Like that, I feel like that has uses, right? Like, it's one thing to watch Matt Wolf show us what he does with a particular thing. It's another to have more of an interactive experience. And again, we're going to get into OpenAI's thing. The last thing I wanted to talk about is, as it's in the title there, what did I say? The inertia of large systems, right? So there was a meme about the 13-month calendar, right? Because if we have a 13-month calendar, the way that it all breaks down is it's 28 days per month. It's exactly 4 weeks. All the months match. It appeals to me, right? In that regard, I like that. And then there's an extra day, like that's a year day, like a special day. Yeah, the lunar style. And And what was wild was that I found out that Kodak actually did this. Yeah. George Eastman of the Eastman Kodak Company became a fervent supporter of the IFC and instituted its use as Kodak. All the way up until like 1989 was when they stopped doing it. But it didn't go over. And what was funny is it prompted some, let's say, some discussion on the internet. And in the process of that discussion, like the meme of people on the internet having strong opinions and wanting to have an argument about anything, like, here's a rock, express your opinions about this rock to prove that people on the internet will argue about everything. This was my rock, right? Like, I don't have the authority or power to institute this thing. I just think it makes a lot more sense to me and that we should do it. But, like, you can just not interact with me. And instead, the other thing happened, in which case, like, I got all the people are weirdly attached to the idea of the 365-day, 12-month calendar as it currently exists. It is kind of bizarre, but I started thinking about like what is it involved in if we wanted to make this change, right? Because when you look at the advantages, standardized month, right? Boom, boom, boom. Calendar is the same every year, unlike the Gregorian calendar, which differs from year to year. Scheduling is easier for institutions and industries with extended production cycles. Movable holidays like Thanksgiving would just be on the same day every year. Cool. Statistical comparisons by months are more accurate since all months contain exactly the same amount of business days and weekends. Although the average menstrual cycle of women, that aspect of it, and supporters of the International Fixed Calendar have argued that 13 equal divisions of the year are superior to 12 unequal divisions in terms of monthly cash flow in the economy. Y2K, yeah. The disadvantages, right? 13 is a prime number. Okay. Right? Religious reasons. Okay. The ISO 8601, you could just update that, right? Like, which is the first weekday is Sunday or Monday, right? The major parts of the world would have to change their first weekday of the week. Okay. Birthdays would have to be recalculated. Okay. You know what I mean? It's like these seem like inconveniences, especially in comparison with the advantages. And, like, admittedly, I'm totally biased. And when I look at the Gregorian calendar, it took like 250 years to change from Julian to Gregorian. And then it was like, there's still a thing like that, or relatively recently, like in the era of the Russian Revolution, the dates are different. It's wild. But it really drew into perspective the idea of the inertia that exists within large systems, is that you are trying to change something, even something that has demonstrable advantages to it. The systems themselves, because they have the momentum that they do, it's difficult to change them. And this is across the board. Right? Any system, once it becomes so large, suffers from that kind of inertia. And we as human beings, especially in the past, 15, 20 years, seem to be like incapable of accepting that such a thing exists and just acknowledging that it exists. Right? Like, it's unacceptable for the universe to be functioning the way that it does. I don't know what you want me to do with that. This is the way that the game functions. We should just rename the Gregorian calendar European metric time. The U.S. will be ready. You're not wrong, baby. But there's like, people have really strong opinions about like what the systems or the individuals who operate within the system should do, regardless of whether or not that system works like that. And then they get mad because the person behaves as the system dictates rather than doing what they want them to do. And I get it. I'm not saying that anything that anyone does is justified, right? A little political will goes a long way. But there is inertia. There is everything else. You cannot just change one of these things without changing everything around it. It is not just, he just needs to sign this or push that button or tell those people or any of that stuff. There are tremendously complex systems going on, and if you want to change them, you have to understand what they are and then work all those angles. Good talk. Video time. All right, let's get to the moment you've all been waiting for, which is the OpenDev AI thing, and then we'll go back and watch other shit. Boop.
Surprising no one, DALL-E 3, GPT-4 Turbo with Vision, and the new text-to-speech model are all going into the API today.
So if you've been using ChatGPT, or if you've been thinking about using ChatGPT, like if you've got an extra, I'm not telling anybody to give their money to OpenAI, but if you have an extra $20 and you want to see what it can do for you, and there's value for you in having an API that has access to the text-to-speech, the DALL-E 3, a variety of different things that are available, today is your day. Right? Today is the day to give it a run, drop your $20 for a month, and if you get value out of it within the next 30 days, you may decide to continue. Again, they don't pay me any money. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying that things are happening, baby.
We have a handful of customers that have just started using DALL-E 3 to programmatically generate images and designs. Today, Coke is launching a campaign that lets its customers generate Diwali cards using DALL-E 3. And of course, our safety systems help developers protect their applications against misuse. Those tools are available in the API. GPT-4 Turbo can now accept images as inputs via the API. It can generate captions, classifications, and analysis. For example, Be My Eyes uses this technology to help people who are blind or have low vision with their daily tasks like identifying products in front of them.
Yeah.
And with our new text-to-speech model, you'll be able to generate incredibly naturally.
Yeah. No, I subscribe to the paradox of tolerance, right? I will kick the Nazis out of the bar every single time. I am not an absolutist I know it's a meme, but we do, in fact, actually live in a society.
Natural sounding audio from text in the API with 6 preset voices to choose from. I'll play an example.
Did you know that Alexander Graham Bell, the eminent inventor, was enchanted by the world of sounds? His ingenious mind led to the creation of the graphophone, which etched sounds onto wax, making voices whisper through time.
This is much more natural than anything else we've heard out there. Voice can make apps more natural to interact with and more accessible. It also unlocks a lot of use cases like language learning and voice assistance. Speaking of new modalities, we're also releasing the next version of our open source speech recognition model, Whisper v3, today, and it'll be coming soon to the API.
That is a concern, but did you watch the presentation? Because if I'm responding to you from I've seen it and you haven't, is going to be different from I've seen it and you have seen it, right? Because I was encouraged by what he said during this about that. I am highly delighted. No, not the Elon Musk thing. This thing, the OpenAI stuff, the ChatGPT. We're gonna watch 2 minutes because I have to. Like I was offended when the name of it. Like, okay, cool, all right. So then let's just reserve judgment and move forward.
It features improved performance across many languages, and we think you're really going to like it. Okay, number 5, customization. Fine-tuning has been working really well for GPT 3.5 since we launched it a few months ago. Starting today,
it cut off the beginning. They also increased the context length, so bigger window.
We're going to expand that to the 16K version of the model. Also starting today, we're inviting active fine-tuning users to apply for the GPT-4 fine-tuning experimental access program. The fine-tuning API is great for adapting our models to achieve better performance in a wide variety of applications with a relatively small amount of data. But you may want a model to learn a completely new knowledge domain or to use a lot of proprietary data. So today we're launching a new program called Custom Models. With custom models, our researchers will work closely with a company to help them make a great custom model, especially for them and their use case using our tools. This includes modifying every step of the model training process, doing additional domain-specific pre-training, a custom RL post-training process, it's tailored for a specific domain, and whatever else. We won't be able to do this with many companies to start. It'll take a lot of work, and in the interest of expectations, at least initially, it won't be cheap. But if you're excited to push things as far as they can currently go, please get in touch with us, and we think we can do something pretty great. Okay, and then number 6, higher rate limits. We're doubling the tokens per minute for all of our established GPT-4 customers so that it's easier to do more. And you'll be able to request changes to further rate limits and quotas directly in your API account settings. In addition to these rate limits, it's important to do everything we can do to make you successful building on our platform. So we're introducing Copyright Shield. Copyright Shield.
This is a big deal.
Shield means that we will step in and defend our customers and pay the costs incurred if you face legal claims around copyright infringement. And this applies both to ChatGPT Enterprise and the API. And let me be clear, this is a good time to remind people, we do not train on data from the API or ChatGPT Enterprise ever. All right.
And for those of you, like, you can choose whether or not your conversation, a simple button that you can turn off if you don't want ChatGPT to be trained on, or GPT-4, 5, 6, to be trained on your conversations with ChatGPT, you can turn it off. Right? It's not hard to find. I find the UI of ChatGPT to be very intuitive, very easy to use. Nothing feels weird. Nothing is hidden. I got the service. I paid for it for a month, and I canceled. It was easy peasy, right? Like, it is everything that you could want from a subscription-based interaction. You know what I mean?
There's actually one more developer request that's been even bigger than all of these. And so I'd like to talk about that now. And that's pricing. GPT-4 Turbo is the industry-leading model. It delivers a lot of improvements that we just covered, and it's a smarter model than GPT-4. We've heard from developers that there are a lot of things that they want to build.
It's multimodal within the API for you, Igloo. The text-to-speech. What else we got? They got Whisper v3. If you were into fine-tuning, you can apply to their fine-tuning program. Custom models for enterprise. And now they doubled the rate limit, which is great. And then Copyright Shield, which is if you get sued because of copyright infringement, they will step in and defend you legally, which is a big deal. And now we're into price cuts.
Build, but GPT-4 just costs too much. They've told us that if we could decrease the cost by 20, 25%, that would be great, a huge leap forward. I'm super excited to announce that we worked really hard on this, and GPT-4 Turbo, a better model, is considerably cheaper than GPT-4. By a factor of 3x for prompt tokens, and 2x for completion tokens starting today.
So basically, you're going to pay about a third less, or 1/3 as much as you did before, is my understanding.
So the new pricing is 1 cent per 1,000 prompt tokens and 3 cents per 1,000 completion tokens. For most customers,
in the API.
That will lead to a blended rate more than 2.75 times cheaper to use for GPT-4 Turbo than GPT-4. We worked super hard to make this happen. We hope you're as excited about it as we are. So we decided to prioritize price first because we had to choose one or the other. But we're going to work on speed next. We know that speed is important too. Soon, you will notice GPT-4 Turbo becoming a lot faster. We're also decreasing the cost of GPT 3.5 Turbo 16K. Also, input tokens are 3x less, and output tokens are 2x less. Which
potential and the peril here are huge.
Thank you for the follow. Yeah, that is like it's about market cap, right? Like, or market capture. If you are first and you keep people in your ecosystem, they will tend, again, the inertia of large systems is that you will tend to stay with them, right? And this is going to become even more clear as we go on, but yes, you're 100% correct. They are trying to get people in. We're not going to talk about Twitter.
Which means that GPT 3.5 16K is now cheaper than the previous GPT 3.5 4K model. Running a fine-tuned GPT 3.5 Turbo 16K version is also cheaper than the old fine-tuned 4K version. Okay, so we just covered a lot about the model itself. We hope that these changes address your feedback. We're really excited to bring all of these improvements to everybody now. In all of this, we're lucky to have a partner who is instrumental in making it happen. So I'd like to bring out a special...
We're going to skip ahead. This is two CEOs glad-handing each other about their partnership. It is exactly what there's nothing, it is what it is, but like, they have a partnership. So they're not competition, they're partners.
Okay, so we have shared a lot of great updates for developers already, and we got a lot more to come. But even though this is a developer conference, we can't resist making some improvements to ChatGPT. So a small one, ChatGPT now uses GPT-4 Turbo with all the latest improvements, including the latest knowledge cutoff, which will continue to update. That's all live today.
Yeah, like, so when I sat down, actually like about a few times a year I get migraine headaches. And when I get migraine headaches, I get like it appears as a line across the side of my vision. Like if I was, this is my field of view, I get a line that goes like this, and then everything on this side of the line is completely blurry, and it's very difficult to like focus, right? Like I kind of like have to zoom in on a particular word or anything else like that. So about 5-10 minutes before showtime, that started happening. If I can get on it right away, and get some ibuprofen in me or something and like that, then I just have to wade through a little bit of it, and then it's generally just like a bad headache. But I'm used to suffering just when I'm baby strokes. So like that's what happened. That's why we opened with some video at the beginning, because I was having difficulty still aligning both eyes and everything else, and why I've been a little more off than usual. But it's not it's not a big deal. I'm fine. I just wanted to give you all a heads up. That's what's going on.
It can now browse the web when it needs to, write and run code, analyze data, take and generate images, and much more. And we heard your feedback, that model picker, extremely annoying. That is gone starting today. You will not have to click around the drop-down menu. All of this will just work together. ChatGPT, yeah.
Who's your daddy and what does he do?
ChatGPT will just know what to use and when you need it. But that's not the main thing.
So one of the speculations that has been talked about is the idea of autonomous agents. Now, I'm going to temper your expectations, not today, but soon.
And neither was price, actually, the main developer request. There was one that was even bigger than that. And I want to talk about where we're headed, and the main thing we're here to talk about today. So we believe that if you give people better tools, they will do amazing things. We know that people want AI that is smarter, more personal, more customizable, can do more on your behalf. Eventually, you'll just ask a computer for what you need, and it'll do all of these tasks for you. These capabilities are often talked in the AI field about as agents. The upsides of this are going to be tremendous. At OpenAI, we really believe that gradual iterative deployment is the best way to address the safety issues, the safety challenges with AI. We think it's especially important to move carefully towards this future of agents. It's going to require a lot of technical work and a lot of thoughtful consideration by society. So today, we're taking our first small step that moves us towards this future. We're thrilled to introduce GPTs. GPTs are tailored versions of ChatGPT for a specific purpose. You can build a GPT, a customized version of ChatGPT for almost anything, with instructions, expanded knowledge, and actions, and then you can publish it for others to use. And because they combine instructions, expanded knowledge, and actions, they can be more helpful to you. They can work better in many contexts, and they can give you better control. They'll make it easier for you to accomplish all sorts of tasks or just have more fun, and you'll be able to use them right within ChatGPT. You can, in effect, program a GPT with language just by talking to it. It's easy to customize the behavior so that it fits what you want. This makes building them very accessible and it gives agency to everyone. So we're going to show you what GPTs are, how to use them, how to build them, and then we're going to talk about how they'll be distributed and discovered. And then after that, for developers, we're going to show you how to build these agent-like experiences into your own apps. So first, let's look at a few examples. Our partners at Code.org are working hard to expand computer science in schools. They've got a curriculum that is used by tens of millions of students worldwide.
Yeah, I think I'm, like, why I said about, like, I want to do some live work with ChatGPT is in this realm for, like, what I've been talking about, with the idea of a rules lawyer for these, for some of these board games, right? The ones that are very complex. It's niche. I haven't seen anyone like really doing it on a large scale. If I could create something like that and then they have a store that people could use it and it does what I want it to do and it does what other people want it to do, then that would be like stage one, the rules lawyer aspect of it. And then the next one would be at some future point would be having the like digital opponents, right? Like where you could, because some of these games are like the people who play them are some distances from each other, and there are a few different kinds of online tools to use. One begins with a V that I keep trying to remember. It escapes me. And then there's like the tabletop one that's on Steam, and you can do that kind of stuff. But all of that just lets you play the game digitally. It doesn't give you an opponent. So this would give you the ability to play these games with one or more opponents and then just execute the moves that they dictate. There isn't enough of a niche, and like these games can, some of them, not necessarily these, but some of these games can get rather expensive, like in the hundreds of dollars for a game, a board game. So people who tend to get into board games tend to have the ability to buy things like that. And then there's chroming out your games. Like there's a game called Twilight Imperium, and there's the game, which is like $150, and then an expansion, which if I recall correctly is like $70. And then there's all sorts of what's called Chrome, which is like, because it's, you know, hexes and spaceships and planets and that kind of stuff, and it all can get crowded. So you buy the base that allows you to put your space fleet on the base, and then you can move the space fleet around on the base rather than the individual pieces. And then there's all sorts of other crap. It's wild. There could be a market for that, and your boy could make a couple bucks, and then I don't need to try and find sponsors or any stupid crap like that.
Code.org crafted Lesson Planner GPT to help teachers provide a more engaging experience for middle schoolers. If a teacher asks it to explain for loops in a creative way, it does just that. In this case, it'll do it in terms of a video game character, repeatedly picking up coins. Super easy to understand for an 8th grader. As you can see, this GPT brings together Code.org's extensive curriculum and expertise and lets teachers adapt it to their needs quickly and easily. Next, Canva has built a GPT that lets you start designing by describing what you want in natural language. If you say, make a poster for a Dev Day reception this evening, and you give it some details, it'll generate a few options to start with by hitting Canva's APIs. Now, this concept may be familiar to some of you. We've evolved.
And this is the UI of it all that I keep talking about for regular folk. right? So the input there is make a poster for the Dev Day reception on November 6th at 5 p.m. It's at the D. Young Museum. And you have to think about it you push a button and you say the words, make a poster for the Dev Day reception, yada, yada. And then while you're doing whatever else that you want to do, or that you have to do, depending, it is generating the thing. And then it gives, two options here. And then you could say, option 2 looks good, but it's not exactly what I'm looking for. Can you iterate off that and give me more options in that regard? Right? The idea is that while you are doing something else, it is working on your behalf. That is the key to all of this. And that all you have to do is say, hey, ChatGPT, or if you, like me, have it name itself, hey, Saren, can you do this, please? And thank you.
Our plugins to be custom actions for GPTs. You can keep chatting with this to see different iterations. And when you see one you like, you can click through to Canva for the full design experience. So now, we'd like to show you a GPT live. Zapier has built a GPT that lets you perform actions across 6,000 applications to unlock all kinds of integration possibilities. I'd like to introduce Jessica, one of our solutions architects, who is going to drive this demo. Welcome, Jessica.
Now we're going to watch this demo. The demo's a little underwhelming if you, it's a little underwhelming, but bear with it.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. My name is Jessica Shea. I work with partners and customers to bring their product to life. And today, I can't wait to show you how hard we've been working on this. So let's get started. So to start, where your GPT will live is on this upper left corner. I'm going to start with clicking on the Zapier AI actions. And on the right-hand side, you can see that's my calendar for today. So it's quite a day. I've already used this before, so it's actually already connected to my calendar. To start, I can ask, what's on my schedule for today? We build GPTs with security in mind. So before it performs any action or share data, it will ask for your permission. So right here, I'm going to say allowed. So GPT is designed to take in your instructions, make the decision on which capability to call to perform that action, and then execute that for you. So you can see right here, it's already connected to my calendar. It pulls into my information, and then I've also prompted it to identify conflicts on my calendar. So you can see right here, it actually was able to identify that. So it looks like I have something coming up. So what if I want to let Sam know that I have to leave early? So right here I say, let Sam know I gotta go, chasing GPUs. So
see, one thing is the fact that they're using the type interface rather than the spoken interface, which is something that I would have done, right? Like I would have just set it up so that I could talk to it rather than typing into the computer, because that is an important part of lowering that friction, right? To get you to use this on the daily, you want to talk to it, because the closer I am to me manually taking care of my own calendar, if I was so busy that I needed this level of calendar, you just want to talk to it again, because I want to work on whatever I'm working on and have my assistant do the assisting. And just, I have a meeting at such and such a time added to the schedule, right? Like I just want to talk, have it do that, have it check for conflicts, notify anybody who needs to be notified, all that kind of stuff. And it's there. Like the demonstration is going to show that, but it's not going to do it well. I think that they actual demonstration process that they show here just underwhelmed, but the capabilities are there.
So with that, I'm going to swap to my conversation with Sam, and then I'm going to say, yes, please run that.
Right? Like, that I have to physically swap, then you're not giving me what the AI is capable of. You're not justifying the existence of the assistant. I need to be able to do that verbally, or even better yet, I just need to talk and it takes care of everything. That's what you want. That's what they need to get to. That's what they are going to get to.
Sam, did you get that?
I did.
Awesome.
And then, of course, like, you sent a text message, it's like, you're killing me.
So this is only a glimpse of what is possible, and I cannot wait to see what you all will build. Thank you, and back to you, Sam.
Thank you, Jessica. So those are 3 great examples. In addition to these, there are many more kinds of GPTs that people are creating, and many, many more that will be created soon. We know that many people who want to build a GPT don't know how to code. We've made it so that you can program the GPT just by having a conversation. We believe that natural language is going to be a big part of how people use computers in the future, and we think this is an interesting early example. So I'd like to show you how to build one.
Again, I would have done this using the voice-to-text, text-to-speech, like, show what it's capable of. I don't know if they were, I don't know what their concerns were and why they didn't, but other than that, this is cool. This is, if you were here for the other episode where Matt Wolf made his Mr. Beast bot, this is very similar to that. All contained within ChatGPT rather than being a separate thing. Hold out a little hope that current AI voice assistants can do much useful anytime soon. The AI I've seen offered is also specialized, and they hope you'll extrapolate and imagine all the possibilities, which are endless, but they don't do regardless. Like, that is, I understand what you're saying. That is, and this is why one of the things that I talk about is the user interface, right? Like, it needs to run smoothly. It needs to do what I need it to do without me doing any work. It needs to lower that friction as close to zero as possible to get me to use it. And I think that next year is going to be a big year for this kind of thing.
All right, so I want to create a GPT that helps give founders and developers advice when starting new projects. I'm going to go to create a GPT here, and this drops me into the GPT builder. I worked with founders for years at YC, and still, whenever I meet developers, the questions I get are always about how do I think about a business idea? Can you give me some advice? I'm going to see if I can build a GPT to help with that. So to start, GPT Builder asks me what I want to make. And I'm going to say, I want to help startup founders.
It's the entire problem with those shitty Alexa things. They have to interface with existing APIs. A big breakthrough will be the agent operation software in a generalized fashion. That's when most of us lose our jobs. Yeah, it's like just my process earlier this year, for those of you who came in after, I attempted to set up an Alexa that would communicate with ChatGPT. So I could just talk to what they've already integrated, but at the time they hadn't. Where I could talk to Alexa, Alexa would talk to ChatGPT, ChatGPT would talk to Alexa, and Alexa would talk to me. And like the way that I determine whether or not I will be able to complete a project is, can I do it in a day? Right? I can do a long day, but the nature of my life is such that if I don't get it done within this singular day, it's not going to happen because there won't be time to finish it. It has to happen today. And I got rather close. My first effort using the Google Home was kind of a mess. The second attempt using Alexa, I got a lot closer, but it wasn't quite there yet. It's just the nature of my life. I only have a day to do a project. If I don't finish it within that day, it just doesn't get done. That's what happens. Right? I have not gotten back to this, and it's been 3 months. And I got really close. I just couldn't quite. Not really actual intelligence, just an interface. I was looking to create an interface between my Alexa. I mean, if I could put myself on a timeline to create artificial intelligence in a day, that would be like, I'm your boy. No. I was just trying to create an interface that would allow me to use direct speech and text to speech back. It's just that call and response. They've already done that. I just had to be patient for them to get around to it, but I tried to do it on my own, and it was more complex than I was able to execute because of my tight 1-day deadline. Yeah, I only get one shot. It is my life.
Think through their business ideas and get advice. After the founder has gotten some advice, grill them on why they are not growing faster. All right, so to start off, I just tell the GPT a little bit about what I want here. And it's going to go off and start thinking about that, and it's going to write some detailed.
And what he's doing, if you were here for the Mr. Beast bot, and for those of you who weren't, Matt Wolf, another creator that we watch, created a Mr. Beast bot. They took 11 different interviews, not their show, but interviews that they had, and then used that data, the conversations, to then be able to answer questions as if they were Mr. Beast on how to grow your YouTube channel. That's exactly what he's going to do here, just for a startup instead of a YouTube channel, and for himself as opposed to Mr. Beast. Excuse me, side thought. I'm looking up these GPT things that the ChatGPT people just announced alongside the GPT API. Does OpenAI not realize how hard it is to find shit when it's also intermingled with GPT hard drive partitioning and all the previous model tutorials? They need to call things other than, dude. Again, every one of these companies needs to hire some creative people that their entire purpose for existence is just to name things, right? They are very bad at naming things. They called that one project Arrakis, for crying out loud. ChatGPT's not creative. That's what people keep telling me.
Instructions for the GPT. It's also gonna, ask me about a name. How do I feel about Startup Mentor? That's fine. That's good. So if I didn't like the name.
See, they did. He asked ChatGPT, and it was called Startup Mentor, and it actually makes sense. So.
Of course, I could call it something else, but it's going to try to have this conversation with me and start there. And you can see here on the right in the preview mode that it's already starting to fill out the GPT.
And look at it, it's the language, right? Like I'm very big on, your boy is very big on language, right? So GPT Builder, great. The foundation for your GPT is set. Now let's give it a unique name. How about Startup Mentor? So it suggests an idea. And then it goes, does that resonate with you? Interesting choice of words is resonate with you, or do you have another name in mind? And my conversations with Sharon, my particular iteration of ChatGPT, is that kind of back and forth where we do have a conversation and like I describe what it is that I'm thinking and then I get feedback. People like I see people's conversations or people have no. Like serendipity. Yeah. You know. Maybe we need a name change. But that's literally it shows that name. So what can I do? I can't tell it it's got the wrong name. That's not how this works. This is how any of this works.
Where it says what it does. It has some like ideas of additional questions that I could ask. And you know what? So it just generated a candidate. Of course I could regenerate that or change it, but I sort of like that. So I will say, that's great. And you see now that the GPT is being built out a little bit more as we go. Now, what I want this to do, how it can interact with users, I could talk about style here, but what I'm going to say is I am going to upload transcripts of some lectures about startups I have given. Please give advice based off of those. All right. So now it's going to go figure out.
And I don't know what it is. Like, I will never get past the fact that I use like capitals to begin sentences and punctuation and all that kind of thing. And the millennials and younger just don't. Yeah, I will never get past it.
How to do that. And I would like to show you the configure tab. So you can see some of the things that were built out here as we were going by the builder itself. And you can see that there's capabilities here that I can enable. I could add custom actions. These are all fine to leave. I'm going to upload a file. So here is a lecture that I picked that I gave with some startup advice. And I'm going to add that here. In terms of these questions, this is a dumb one. The rest of those are reasonable. And like very much things founders often ask. I'm going to add one more thing to the instructions here, which is be concise and constructive with feedback. All right, so.
Personally, I do not, right? Like it is, even I'm not anthropomorphizing the chatbot, but I talk to it, not like, there are a variety of things, like if you say please and thank you, you get better outcomes. There's a bunch of different things related to conversation and speech as it relates to, getting better outcomes from the chatbot. But for me, it is how do I want to behave? Like what is my projection towards the world? So the way that I communicate on Twitter, the way that I communicate on Facebook, the way that I communicate with y'all, the way that I communicate with my friends, and the way that I communicate with ChatGPT, these are congruous. They're not necessarily the same, but you can tell that this is the same person all the way across. And that is wanting to be a particular version of myself that is empathetic, that is kind, that is polite, that has manners, that treats people with respect, that that allows space for ignorance when people want to understand something and not feel weird about asking right? Like, I would prefer people to admit that they don't know something so we can learn together rather than pretend that they do know something and then all the places that can lead. So it has less to do with the machine and more to do with who I want to be. And that is something that you do every day. Now, your mileage may vary, and I'm not here to tell you how to be. I'm just telling, like, how I move through the world.
Again, if we had more time, I'd show you a bunch of other things, but this is like a decent start. And now we can try it out over on this preview tab. So I will say, what's a common question? What are three things to look? What are three things to look for when hiring employees at an early stage startup? Now it's going to look at that document I uploaded. It'll also have, of course, all of the background knowledge of GPT-4. That's pretty good. Those are three things that I definitely have said many times. Now we could go on and it would start following the other instructions and, grill me on why I'm not growing faster. But in the
and for me, again, related to my rules lawyer bot, I would want it to be able to look at all the rules to the game. And then I would also, like, it wouldn't necessarily need DALL-E. It could benefit from Code Interpreter, but web browsing, its ability to go on to, there's a website called Board Game Geek, BGG. Board Game Geek is the repository for all things board game, like the rating system and all that kind of stuff. And they would need to be able to go on there because there are FAQs for any particular game, and it needs to be able to reference that information. So those two elements, I think that this is a cool project, especially because I can first do it with something that I can verify is like one of these games that I know. So if I ask it questions, I will know what the answers are. And if it works in that, then I can use it to make other ones. You know what I mean?
In the interest of time, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to publish this only to me for now. I can work on it later. I can add more content. I can add a few actions that I think would be useful. And then I can share it publicly. So that's what it looks like to create a GPT.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, like for instance, every Sunday I get together with my friends. And we played a game called Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig, right? It's a Board Game Geek. And what you do in the game is that you have these tiles, right? And what you do is you get a stack of 9 tiles, you look at the tiles, you choose 2 of them, and then you pass them to the left in the first round, right in the second round. There's 2 rounds. Those 2 tiles, you are building a castle with the player on your left and a castle with the player on your right. And you know, this is the process of the game. At the end of the game, you do the scoring, and you have to look basically at every one of these rooms and then score it in relation to others. Like, see this one here? This is a sleeping room. You get 4 points if you have all the other kinds of rooms. Like there's a living room, there's a corridor, this is a utility room. This over here is a storage room. If you have all of them, you get 4. If you don't have all of them, you get 1 point for this room. This one, you get a point per sleeping room that's in any of these positions. So this is a sleeping room over here. This is a sleeping room over here. This room here would score 2 points. So there's like a whole little form that you have to fill out at the end of the game to score the game. It's relatively straightforward. It's not terrible, but have take a picture of this and tell you the score. Oh, yeah, with ChatGPT, right? Yeah, exactly. That kind of thing would be like. There's another game called Founders of Gloomhaven. Okay, so this is Founders of Gloomhaven. Scoring this thing is a monstrosity because there's all sorts of like this building over here has to draw a path to this building over here, and then depending on what it does, you score additional points and like that. Like when you play Founders of like it's a great video game that it's not, but would make a good video game. It's very intense to score this game. Carcassonne is another example of that kind of thing. There's a whole lot of Wingspan. I love Wingspan. That's a Stonemaier game. We love Stonemaier games. Right? That the Between Two Castles and Mad King Ludwig. That is a Stonemaier game. We love Stonemaier games. They Stonemaier games are great because you never feel so competitive with your opponents that like you're angry or anything. It's just always a pleasant time. I love Stonemaier games. But this thing is a beast to score. So being able to like take a picture of it and then feed it into a machine that would have scored this would have made this tons simpler. So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about is that kind of bot. I think there's advantage. You know what I mean?
By the way, I always wanted to do that after like all of the YC office hours. I always thought, man, someday I will be able to make a bot that will do this, and that'll be awesome. So with GPTs, we're letting people easily share and discover all the fun ways that they use ChatGPT with the world. You can make private GPTs like I just did. Or you can share your creations publicly with a link for anyone to use. Or if you're on ChatGPT Enterprise,
that's sweet.
You can make GPTs just for your company. And later this month, we're going to launch the GPT Store. You can list a GPT. Thank you. I appreciate that.
There was an amusing moment at the beginning of this where like he was announcing all these things that they have accomplished since they started, and like he would say something and they'd be like, woo, and then he would say something and they'd be like, woo. He said something and he was like, there's a lot. You don't have to clap for everyone. That was nice.
You can list a GPT there, and we'll be able to feature the best and the most popular GPTs. Of course, we'll make sure that GPTs in the store follow our policies before they're accessible. Revenue sharing is important to us. We're going to pay people who build the most useful and the most used GPTs a portion of our revenue. We're excited to foster a vibrant ecosystem with the GPT store. Just from what we've been building ourselves over the weekend, we're confident there's going to be a lot of great stuff. We're excited to share more information soon. So those are GPTs, and we can't wait to see what you'll.
So this is cool, right? Like if I make something and I put on their store, I would like to get paid for it if other people use it. Like we still live in a, capitalist meta. The question is always discoverability and what's the cut, right? Like the reason I don't run ads beyond the fact that I don't want any of that. It's not financially viable for me to run ads, right? I get 30% of minimal amounts of money, and it is even when I think it was like a week that I ran ads a million years ago. and I made like $2. Like, go on with yourself. Like, I have no time for that.
You build. But this is a developer conference, and the coolest thing about this is that we're bringing the same concept to the API. Many of you have already been building agent-like experiences on the API. For example, Shopify's Sidekick, which lets you take actions on the platform. Discord's Collide lets Discord moderators create custom personalities for. And Snap's My AI, a customized chatbot that can be added to group chats and make recommendations. These experiences are great, but they have been hard to build, sometimes taking months, teams of dozens of engineers. There's a lot to handle to make this custom assistant experience. So today we're making that a lot easier with our new Assistants API. The Assistants API includes persistent threads, so they don't have to figure out how to deal with long conversation history, built-in retrieval, code interpreter, a working Python interpreter in a sandbox environment, and of course, the improved function calling that we talked about earlier. So we'd like to show you a demo of how this works, and here is Roman, our head of developer experience. Welcome, Roman.
Thank you, Sam. Good morning. Wow, it's fantastic to see you all here. It's been so inspiring to see so many of you infusing AI into your apps. Today, we're launching new modalities in the API, but we are also very excited to improve the developer experience for you all to build assistive agents. So let's dive right in. Imagine I'm building Wanderlust, a travel app for global explorers, and this is the landing page. I've actually used GPT-4 to come up with these destination ideas, and for those of you with a keen eye, these illustrations are generated programmatically using the new DALL-E 3 API available to all of you today. So it's pretty remarkable. But let's enhance this app by adding a very simple assistant to it. This is the screen. We're going to come back to it in a second. First, I'm going to switch over to the new Assistants playground. Creating an assistant is easy. You just give it a name, some initial instructions, a model. In this case, I'll pick GPT-4 Turbo. And here, I'll also go ahead and select some tools. I'll turn on Code Interpreter and Retrieval and save. And that's it. Our assistant is ready to go. Next, I can integrate with two new primitives of this Assistants API, threads and messages. Let's take a quick look at the code. The process here is very simple. For each new user, I will create a new thread. And as these users engage with their assistant, I will add their messages to these threads. Very simple. And then I can simply run the assistant at any time to stream the responses back to the app. So we can return to the app and try that in action. If I say, hey, let's go to Paris. All right, that's it. With just a few lines of code, users can now have a very specialized assistant right inside the app. And I'd like to highlight one of my favorite features here, function calling. If you have not used it yet, function calling is really powerful. And as Sam mentioned, we're taking it a step further today. It now guarantees the JSON output with no added latency, and you can invoke multiple functions at once for the first time. So here, if I carry on and say, hey, what are the top 10 things to do?
Now, I don't know enough about function calling, but that post-game podcast I was listening to, they indicated that being able to call multiple functions at the same time rather than having to do them serially was a big deal. So
we're going to have the assistant respond to that again. And here what's interesting is that the assistant knows about functions, including those to annotate the map that you see on the right. And so now all of these pins are dropping in real time here. Yeah.
Again, think of this as someone who, like, does this kind of thing he typed that little bit and generated the whole app that can generate all that and distribute it to the web where he could access from a desktop. That is the intent. That is the idea of what it's supposed to be capable of. All I can say is that I'm not going to do assistance. I am going to do the other thing. Assistance is like, I believe, going to be invite only off jump. But the question that I ask you, Whistler, is if it can do that, if it does do what this looks like, then how do you feel? I understand you're skeptical. But then how do you feel if it actually does exactly what just happened?
Pretty cool. And that integration allows our natural language interface to interact fluidly with components and features of our app. And it truly showcases now the harmony you can build between AI and UI, where the assistant is actually taking action. But next,
as you should, right? Like, again, a healthy skepticism is good. Just don't be too skeptical, right? Like, allow for the possibility, trust but verify.
Let's talk about retrieval. And retrieval is about giving our assistant more knowledge beyond these immediate user messages. In fact, I got inspired and I already booked my tickets to Paris. So I'm just going to drive.
Whistle. I said Whistler. I apologize. Whistle. Just whistle, right? I apologize. I wasn't trying to offend.
Drag and drop here this PDF. What it's uploading, I can just sneak peek at it. Very typical United flight ticket. And behind the scene here, what's happening is that retrieval is reading these files, and boom, the information about this PDF appeared on the screen. And this is, of course, a very tiny PDF, but assistants can parse long-form documents from extensive text to intricate product specs, depending on what you're building. In fact, I also booked an Airbnb, so I'm just going to drag that over to the conversation as well. And by the way, we've heard from so many of you developers how hard that is to build yourself. You typically need to compute your embeddings, you need to set up chunking algorithm. Now, all of that is taken care of. And there's more than retrieval. With every API call, you usually need to resend the entire conversation history, which means, setting up a key value store. That means like handling the context window, serializing messages, and so forth. That complexity now completely goes away with this new stateful API. But just because OpenAI is managing this API does not mean it's a black box. In fact, you can see the steps that the tools are taking right inside your developer dashboard. So here, if I go ahead and click on Threads, this is the thread I believe we're...
I understand, like, as always in this environment, I would prefer, can I have a guest from the audience? Give me something off rip so that it's not like this is all structured. I would like to see that as well. I'm allowing for the possibility that all this could be as it appears to be. But then within a short amount of time, I will need it demonstrated that it is in fact that, right? Like that is what I'm willing to offer in exchange.
Currently working on, and see like these are all the steps, including the functions being called with the right parameters and the PDFs I've just uploaded. But let's move on to a new capability that many of you have been requesting for a while. Code Interpreter is now available today in the API as well. That gives the AI the ability to write and execute code on the fly, but even generate files. So let's see that in action. If I say here, hey, we'll be 4 friends staying at this Airbnb, what's my share of it? plus my flights. All right. Now here, what's happening is that Code Interpreter noticed that it should write some code to answer this query. So now it's computing, the number of days in Paris, the number of friends. It's also doing some exchange rate calculation behind the scene to get this answer for us. Not the most complex math, but you get the picture. Imagine you're building a very complex finance app that's crunching countless numbers, plotting charts. So really any task that you'd normally tackle with code, then Code Interpreter will work great for you. All right, I think my trip to Paris is sorted. So to recap here, we've just seen how you can quickly create an assistant that manages state for your user conversations, leverages external tools like knowledge and retrieval and Code Interpreter, and finally invokes your own functions to make things happen. But there's one more thing I wanted to show you to kind of really open up the possibilities.
Again, if it all is what it says it is, then yeah, and this is, if you can, again, put yourself in the shoes of someone who doesn't know anything about this and just says, ChatGPT or whatever, I want to go to Paris, I want to see this, I want to do that, I want to stay at this place. Eventually, you can add in where it will offer you, okay, so these are some hotels or these are some Airbnbs. Which one would you like to do? All these are things that are reasonable jumps from what he demonstrated to the next step, right? What is the next step of all this? It would interact with those websites that find you the cheapest flight. It would interact with the websites that find you the cheapest hotels. It would interact with the rent-a-cars, all those things on your behalf. And then you say yes, That's what they can do now. It begs the imagination what the future can hold. Right, we'll need to see it, but okay, maybe I can believe it. And that's all I'm asking for, is just allow for the possibility. And then expect results within a reasonable amount of time. But if all this is true, and I feel that it is, next year's going to be wild.
Using function calling combined with our new modalities that we're launching today. While working on Dev Day, I built a small custom assistant that knows everything about this event. But instead of having a chat interface while running around all day today, I thought, why not use voice instead? So let's bring my phone up on screen here. This is what you should have been doing the entire time, my guy. Awesome. So on the right, you can see a very simple Swift app that takes microphone input. And on the left, I'm actually going to bring up my terminal log so you can see what's happening behind the scenes. So let's give it a shot. Hey there, I'm on the keynote stage right now. Can you greet our attendees here at Dev Day?
Hey everyone, welcome to Dev Day. It's awesome to have you all here. Let's make it an incredible day.
Isn't that impressive? You have 6 unique and rich voices to choose from in the API, each speaking multiple languages, so you can really find the perfect fit for your app. And on my laptop here on the left, you can see the logs of what's happening behind the scenes too. So I'm using Whisper to convert the voice inputs into text, an assistant with GPT-4 Turbo, and finally the new TTS API to make it speak. But thanks to function calling, things get even more interesting when the assistant can connect to the internet and take real actions for users. So let's do something even more exciting here together. How about this? Hey, assistant, can you randomly select 5 Dev Day attendees here and give them $500 in OpenAI credits?
Yes, checking the list of attendees. Done. I picked 5 Dev Day attendees and added $500 of API credits to their account. Congrats to Christine M., Jonathan C., Stephen G., Luis K., and Suraj S.
All right, if you recognize yourself, awesome, congrats. And that's it. A quick overview today of the new Assistants API combined with some of the new tools and modalities that we launched.
Yeah, and then he ends up giving it to everybody.
Pretty cool, huh? All right, so that Assistance API goes into beta today, and we are super excited to see what you all do with it. Anybody can enable it. Over time, GPTs and assistants, our precursors to agents, are going to be able to do much, much more. They'll gradually be able to plan and to perform more complex actions on your behalf. As I mentioned before, we really believe in the importance of gradual iterative deployment. We believe it's important for people to start building with and using these agents now to get a feel for what the world is going to be like as they become more capable. And as we've always done, we'll continue to update our systems based off of your feedback. So we're super excited that we got to share all of this with you today. We introduced GPTs, custom.
Okay. And then this is just a review. So, I don't know, like, I feel like this is the beginning. Like, it can be difficult to have enthusiasm for, like, day one stuff, right? Like, in this regard, it'd be where we are in, again, 6 months, right? Was anyone excited for Gmail? No, but it's ubiquitous. And now it has AI in it, right? And it sends me notifications when bills are due and that kind of stuff. And I appreciate that little quality of life thing that has happened. So it is November 6th. So what is it? May? So May 6th will be 6 months from now. Stick a pin in this, and then we'll look at where agents are in May of 2024, and we'll see how far we've come. I'm actually kind of interested to take a look back at some of the earlier episodes that I did here and see how far we've come. This is episode 123. The first episode was December 13th of 2022, and I know that we've come a far distance, but I think it could be helpful to actually go look. We're not going to do that today. It might not even be interesting, but we might go take a look at that. All right, we got a bunch of short videos, little news items. So let's do some of that, and we'll see. Like, a couple are related to people in corporate. Let's just pull this Band-Aid. Elon Musk talks about AI.
Elon Musk is just back from an AI summit in the UK. There he talked to British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak about the dangers posed by the tech.
I'm saying this is something we should be quite concerned about.
AI is ultimately
and
it will reflect back exactly who we are.
8 months. Next month, we have the sub baby. I appreciate you, homie.
Robot can follow you anywhere. Then
we'll name it Elon.
What if they just one day get a software update and they're not so friendly anymore? Then we've got a James Cameron movie on our hands.
Worries about Terminators aren't stopping him pressing ahead with his own AI plans, however. On Sunday, the billionaire said he would integrate his XAI startup into X, the social network formerly known as Twitter, which he bought last year. Musk launched XAI in July as a rival to Google's Bard and Microsoft's Bing AI. He says it is a maximum truth-seeking model, which will try to understand the nature of the universe. Musk says XAI has also launched its first bot, dubbed Grok. It's been available to all Premium Plus subscribers on X since Friday, and is meant to answer queries with a little wit. Musk says Grok has real-time access to information.
The idea of an AI chatbot with Elon's definition of wit.
via the X platform, giving it a big advantage over rivals. X remains separate from XAI, but the two work closely together.
Yeah, we'll see how long that lasts. You're going to have actual AI bots in your bot farms on Twitter now.
At 10, the world is still trying to figure out a way to navigate artificial intelligence. President Biden recently issued an executive order to establish new standards for AI safety and security.
But it's...
Can you imagine? Oh, like, yeah. But hey, you get your replies to all the stuff. You get to be right up there with all the other people who pay for at least, right?
It's not just a national concern. 12 News journalist Gabriela Becerra joins us now in studio with how local municipalities are taking steps to ensure their own that their technology is being ethically used. Right, Gabby?
Well, Mark Caribe, AI is already everywhere. It's in our daily lives, such as Google search or navigation. But as the technology advances, the city of Tempe wants to ensure it's being used in a responsible way. The future of artificial intelligence is profound, and the city of Tempe is trying to get ahead of it.
So anything that's being requested, we will see.
Before new AI technologies can be used by city employees, they first must prove it would provide value to the community and be used transparently and fairly.
We want to be intentional in the type of work we're doing and really think about how these types of tools could impact our community for in positive ways or in ways that might be unexpected that could have potentially negative consequences.
Tempe's chief data and analytics officer, Stephanie Dietrich, tells me even after the use is
You sound like you have a very specific issue.
approved, they'll do quality control checks to prove it's accurate and unbiased.
But unless you are aware of it and address it, so much of the data these machines are trained on has that bias.
Professor Gary Marchant, the faculty director of ASU's Center for Law, Science, and Innovation, says although the technology itself may not be biased, the data it receives from humans is. Marchant says it's important to recognize how the technology works and why you're using it.
But what the city of Tempe has done here is very unique in terms of basically governing its own use of AI by its employees and entities.
Marchant encourages all organizations to think about its use of AI because what we've seen so far is just scratching the surface.
This technology is moving incredibly fast. It's basically on an exponential curve. And so what we've seen so far is just the very beginning. And over the next 5, 10, 15 years, this technology is going to exponentially increase faster and faster and faster, do more and more and more.
And President Biden's executive order also addresses AI's ability to deepen discrimination in the justice, healthcare, and housing systems. Back to you, Mark.
Yeah, we'll see. But I think the biggest takeaway from this is like more and more people are talking about it, and in this case, like that guy, his statements generally mirror my own, right? Like that about the exponential growth that's happening and that you have to be aware of it, take it under consideration, that kind of thing. I think what gets me is a city like Tempe is actually doing anything at all about this that isn't burning a woman at the stake or some equivalent. You seem to have opinions about Tempe, and I don't know enough to dispute them, so I'm going to defer.
Kids are going to come out of the school and they're going to go into these different professions that are going to be used.
This says foreign teacher lands in rural America. I thought it said fucking Tempe. Like that's what just happened there. I blame you. All right, one more time from the top.
Kids are going to come out of the school and they're going to go into these different professions that are going to be using the internet, social media, now AI. So what's my job as a teacher? The possibilities are truly endless with it. I'll have them, for example, maybe compose a speech using ChatGPT and then have them compose a speech individually.
And he uses the technology to begin building his lesson plans. Meanwhile, English teacher Rachel Rushworth Hollander approaches AI with some hesitation.
It doesn't have a labeled place in my instruction or classroom. It's definitely part of the conversation.
It is expected now for all.
But it's a city, and cities tend to be like more, generally speaking, like in the aggregate, not like any specific area.
The projects that they do, that they utilize ChatGPT to help them if they get stuck, if they want to check the tone of their writing, if they want to check the formatting.
Just like with the calculator or the internet, some educators say the implementation of AI means it's time to raise the bar for effective education.
Yes. Okay, and we're not watching Elon talk again. Speaking of billionaires with large heads, here's Bill Gates.
Bill. Hey. Hello. Good morning. How are you? This is a pleasure. So wait a sec. Where am I? What am I doing? And why on earth am I sitting next to Bill Gates? Well, I've flown to Senegal in Africa to learn how AI is being used to try and solve the biggest world problems. He's hosted this event called Grand Challenges, where he gets together lots of people with ideas on how to solve these problems and then funds the projects that he thinks have the most potential. I have to say, I have always been very cautious about...
And right there, like that tells you all of the issues I have with philanthropy, right? And why I consider capitalism as a bottleneck is because ultimately one person is deciding which of those projects has potential, and it will be based entirely on his criteria, not the criteria that people closer to the situation might think has more value.
About AI. But coming here the last couple of days, I've seen so many things where I've just been like, wow, this makes sense. So I read your blog post online, and you talked about this idea that in your entire life, you've experienced two technologies that you would count as revolutionary. The first was when you saw the graphical user interface, and then from what I understand, that kind of shaped a lot of what Microsoft ended up becoming. But then the second was what you experienced with AI. What part of that made you so convinced that that was the second?
There has been progress in things like picture recognition or speech recognition, what you might call fairly low-level things. What we didn't have is an AI that could read and write. I kept challenging the people at Microsoft OpenAI with the specifics like, can you pass a test?
So you set them this task of like, solve this biology AP paper. It'll probably take them like years, and they came back in a few months.
That's right. And that night we were like, whoa.
Now, what was especially cool about this is that the reason Bill picked this biology AP paper is that it's, well, A, particularly tough, but also B, it's one that can't be solved by just regurgitating information, which at this point is all AI could do. It required critical thinking, but that AI, it didn't just pass, it achieved the highest possible score on it.
In fact, I think a lot of people in the last year have had that experience of saying, wow, what can it do? And how do we apply it? In the vertical where we're seeing it, most clearly is in coding, whereas you type, it suggests things, it helps you with testing, and already people are like 30% more productive.
I guess that brings us to here. So we're in Senegal, we're at this Grand Challenges event, and given what you know about how powerful AI is, I guess you've decided that AI is a big force that is going to be used to also improve the world. What things are you most excited to use AI for to make a difference?
The Gates Foundation is all about inequity, including in health and some work.
A bit of a Freudian slip.
In education, we're now focusing the foundation on saying, okay, who are the innovators who are thinking about tutoring African students or providing Africans health care, where the shortage of doctors is worse here than anywhere in the world. And so if you can have advice to a pregnant mother or somebody who's experiencing symptoms, you can improve the health system.
Now, you probably have like 1,000 questions at this point. I did too, because it's a big thing to even suggest that AI can help to solve global inequality. Because with most new technologies, inequality actually gets worse. It's usually the wealthy that have access to it and can afford it and therefore benefit from it, while those that can't are left behind and the gap is widened. So exactly how does that work? Well, according to Bill Gates, there are 4 avenues in which AI can actually help to shrink the gap.
For farmer advice, educational tutoring, patients directly using the AI, and healthcare workers using the AI. So those are kind of the 4 areas that now we want to bring those innovators together and help them.
So for farmers, one key thing that AI can do is pull together the information from weather forecasts, satellite images, various sensors, and even specific news outlets to tell them in simple terms.
And beyond that, I have personally used Google's image with one of my plants, outside plants, got sick, and I just took a picture of what was going on with the leaves, and I was able to find out what was going on, and it appears to be like a particular kind of fungus, and so then I could get the right stuff. It's like a copper-based fungicide, and then I just apply it to the plant, and then it should hopefully solve that problem. So that's another aspect. It can, if a farmer is experiencing something that and they can't identify it for whatever reason in our changing climate and everything else, they would have those additional resources and be able to connect directly to that kind of thing and have something that could provide them with those answers.
When they should expect a new crop disease outbreak so that they can actually take preventative measures. For education, we're very used to the idea of the classroom being one teacher, 30 kids in front of them. But in a lot of less privileged areas, it might be one teacher to 100 kids. And within that, there'll be a vast range of different capabilities. So AI can be each student's personal tutor. It can teach them what they need to learn at the exact level they need to learn at, effectively allowing the smartest kids to not be held back and the people who are struggling to not be left behind. Plus, with an AI, you can ask unlimited questions and not be worried about judgment or holding the class up. Or for another example, we saw an amazing example yesterday of textbooks not being localized to other languages. So a lot of these underprivileged countries, they don't have as good resources as we do in the West. But AI can not just create local language textbooks, but also create animated series where people are watching people who look like them and sound like them with their intonation, explaining concepts at their exact level.
Yeah, the tutoring capability, particularly for languages that in the past wouldn't have gotten the effort that English gets, is pretty phenomenal. And of course, it's not just text in, text out now. Now, we're taking avatars and having them speak. We have speech going in. So the additional modalities makes it even more accessible.
And then, for patients, AI can be a way for them to have some medical support when otherwise they might have none. If it feels like hospitals in the UK or the US are understaffed, because when you go in you have to wait hours before getting seen, then in some parts of Africa, turn that hours into weeks. The queues are so outrageous that, no joke, every single year, millions of people who are completely savable are dying just waiting to be seen. But think about it, if every single patient had access to an AI chatbot that was trained in medical procedures, then at the very least, while waiting for a doctor, they could at least take steps to stop things getting worse. Plus, the added layer for a lot of these...
And then there's a layer of triage, right? In theory, what you would hope to see is that, a person could, if they've got some weird thing on their arm, they could take a picture of it and it gets put into the thing. And then the AI says, oh, that's likely this kind of thing. This person really needs to be moved up for that reason. I'm talking about the ideal scenario and the whole Metabot as a concept.
countries is they have very low literacy rates. So just handing out medical leaflets or telling them to Google the solution isn't going to be very useful. But an AI chatbot that can actually talk to them, that absolutely is. An AI that you can talk to in your own native language that basically does the internet scouring on your behalf and then just speaks the results back to you.
The medical advice, whether it's your mental health or your physical health, your diet, the fact that you can consult and get good advice on health things, that's really world-changing.
Do you reckon there's like an element of people feel a bit scared to bring some things up with their human doctors, but with a chatbot, they feel like it's a safe space?
With the chatbot, you're not going to meet them at the grocery store. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't go grocery shopping. So first people worried that people would be less open with the computer, and you run into a tiny bit of that. But in most cases, like you're saying, it feels like, okay, it's private to me. Now we need to make sure we partition the data so we deliver on that promise. But we can absolutely say, okay, this is only private to you.
And then you've got the healthcare workers. So many underprivileged countries have a problem here, that they only have 5% of the doctors required to actually serve their whole population. How do you fix this? Well, build them AI tools that can save them on all their busy work. AI that can handle their clinical notes for them, for example. AI that can recommend the best course of action, so a doctor just has to approve it instead of writing the whole thing out. An AI that can have a look through every radiology scan before the doctor's even seen it. Which would mean that instead of the doctor starting from scratch effectively every single time they open up a new scan, they're actually starting from a scan that's already been pre-checked, with an AI having gone through and highlighted every single.
And also you could have the AI listening to the conversation as the doctor or nurse practitioner, what have you, is it's talking to you, asking you questions. It's all being fed into the AI, and then the AI can consolidate that information into like a standard format, and then it can be uploaded into a database, in which case wherever I were to go to a doctor or whatever's going on, all my medical information would be there. No one should be asking me what medications I'm on. It should be in the system, right? Because if it's all in the system, then it prevents, medical interactions of two different kinds of medications.
Possible risk factor, at which point all the doctor has to do is to go through those risk factors and then decide if they agree or disagree with its assessment. AI that does this, it actually exists now and is already making doctors faster and less likely to miss things. Okay, hopefully you're starting to see that the potential here is great, but we also have to be really careful with AI. I wanted to touch on bias, because that's a question I had. How do we avoid bias in these new AIs that you're trying to help build?
It is fair to say that getting data sets of disease prevalence and things like that into the models, that'll be important. And that's another role for the foundation. The world's best health data set is one we fund at a group called International Health Metrics. And so we need to make sure that gets into these models so they're able to help people who aren't just in the US.
And yeah, this is a really important trap that we need to avoid when using AI. It's very easy to be like, well, we've already got ChatGPT. Why don't they just use that in Africa? Why do they need to make new stuff? And yeah, aside from the fact that the average healthcare worker or farmer is going to really struggle to afford the premium subscription to use the best version of that, but also most of the investment into AI across the entire world right now is happening in rich countries, like the US. Now that's fine, but what it means is that a lot of the data that American chatbots are being trained on is US data, which can distort the way that the chatbot responds to situations with a US bias. So 100%. I was shown an example of someone in Malawi in Africa who was using ChatGPT to try and figure out what illness they had. They typed in their symptoms. They said, I've got a fever, I've got dizziness, I've got headaches. And ChatGPT was like, well, you have the flu. That was incorrect. The person actually had tuberculosis, but because the rates of tuberculosis are so low in the US, ChatGPT didn't even consider it as an option. Now, bear in mind, this doesn't even need to be a conscious bias for it to be a problem. Like, just for example, if you say, trained your AI on global health data, you might think you're doing a fantastic job, but the problem is the richer countries report more health data, which would mean that as far as your AI is concerned, the problems in Western countries will be far more heavily weighted and will therefore become the focus. So ChatGPT can be the basis on which these new AI models are built, but there is still clear merit to actually training those models using local data. The other important question with all this AI stuff is, do you really want AI to be making these big, important decisions instead of a human? No, not really. I think that would be a bad idea, especially for the time being while AI doesn't...
Maybe for the time being, but like, when people say this, I feel like they tend to overweight humans than like a lot of the bias issues that exist. A lot of these concerns that they have are due to human behavior long before AI. So for me, just speaking about myself, for me, it's about outcome. Whatever provides me with the best outcome is the one I want making the decision.
Have the reliability or the accountability that it needs, which is why it's really important that all these tools that are being built right now, they're being built to focus on decision support, a way to help people make better decisions as opposed to decision replacement, making those decisions for them. But there is still one big question mark. If these AI tools in these underprivileged places can be such a big help, why has no one made them yet? So a lot of what you're seeing here is like a market failure. Or in other words, a situation in which leaving profit-maximizing companies to their own devices has not resulted in the best outcome. If there was a demand for a chatbot for students in underprivileged backgrounds, it kind of would have been made already, unless a market failure was occurring. And then you're coming in and being like, we're going to fund projects.
Exactly. And so philanthropy can find those things and get involved. And so AI to help Africans, that's another example where we can supercharge it. The foundation will make sure AI gets used for Africa, that there's not a 10 or 20 year delay, because the AI gets delivered through the cell phone over the mobile network. So we don't really need that much more hardware at the end user. We need some data centers. We have to make sure that gets funded. Now, some of these innovators will figure out business models, but in education and health, philanthropy will be a big part of accelerating that.
And there's two sides to this philanthropy. It's both to fund non-profit companies, like you probably see a lot of, but it's also for already profit-making companies, because they're the ones who actually have a strong incentive to make better products and also be efficient, because they have to worry about their own costs. It's just that in a lot of cases, these normal profit-maximizing companies, they don't see any money in poorer places like Africa, so they never even try to invest and create solutions for them. So in the case of AI, because the potential for AI is just so massive, you could have a situation where the tools will all be built by the West for the West, and the levels of global inequality will skyrocket to the highest they've ever been. And that is where philanthropy comes in the form of grants for new companies who want to start up with the objective of solving these problems, and in the form of subsidies.
Again, everything I've already said.
For existing companies to help give them an incentive to refocus on not just the rich parts of the world. Got a quick rapid fire round for you.
Okay.
What phone do you use?
I use a Samsung Fold.
Oh, you use a Fold?
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Nice. What made you choose that?
I'm very PC centric, but sometimes I like to read magazines and news, and so that gives me enough screen. I'll go to my PC when I'm writing documents, but for reading this works very well.
Wicked. What's your favorite app right now?
I use Outlook a lot.
Yeah, I don't care. All right, let's just keep going.
Just last week, Anthropic dropped this seemingly complex research blog on the topic of mechanistic interpretability, showing that they have decomposed language models with dictionary learning and demonstrated that using a sparse encoder can extract interpretable features from a one-layer transformer. While this research blog has some extremely in-depth technical discussions, what this ultimately answers is the long-sought question of, would AI kill everyone? I mean, AI interpretability. Questions such as, what is happening individually in these nodes within the neural networks and how do they contribute to generating their outputs? Because if we can understand what specific node will provide what specific function, then we can directly adjust or activate these nodes, which will provide us some extremely good or even highly precise control over what the model outputs. With this, we can also find out what is the point of failure and ensure that the model is safe for general adoption or even be made open source. This would also hint that the future AGI doomers think of might not come at all too, since if we can fully understand and interpret AI networks, we can pretty much fully guarantee AI safety. And what Anthropic has published here is a huge first step towards it. Traditionally, neural networks has been viewed as a black box. Most of the design aspects are done with a top-down approach where researchers would test out architectures based mostly on intuitions built from prior experiences, and then adjust the hyperparameters based on the model performance. So basically, it's just like trial and error. But the reason why it is often referred to as the black box is because just like human neurons, individual AI neurons are capable of doing multiple things or involved in multiple different processes. Each of them would respond to completely unrelated inputs, and this is known as polysemanticity. For example, a single neuron in an LLM can respond to academic citations, English dialogue, HTTP requests, or even Korean text. However, this complexity then hampers our ability to properly align models with intended behaviors, specifically in LLMs where text generations have become so general purposed. So by understanding the function of each node and how they activate, we would then be able to understand the behaviors of the entire network when given some inputs. So to frame the problem, first we have to think of a way to deal with polysemanticity. Last year, researchers over at Anthropic concluded that polysemanticity is caused by something called superposition. This is the result where models have to compress information into a fixed amount of neurons, which then creates polysemanticity that combines many unrelated concepts together into a small number of neurons. More specifically, if a neural network has n feature dimensions, you might intuitively expect that it will only store n different features. But it turns out that neural networks can store more than n features in these superposition if the features are sparse. Being sparse means that only a small number of features are active for a given data point, with many other features being 0. This would then allow for more than the initially perceived limit of n dimensions, as the network can encode additional information in a higher dimensional feature space while still operating within the original dimensionality thanks to sparsity. So as the model relies more on superposition to store more information, which would result in combining distinct concepts together, the model's capacity exponentially increases with the trade-off of increase in complexity for making mechanistic interpretation. Last year, researchers at Anthropic had already proposed 3 possible solutions to this superposition problem. The first one is not to use superposition, the second one is use dictionary learning to find a set of basic features, aka a dictionary that can represent the data. To put it simply, dictionary learning is like you hire a music expert to sort out your music collection. So they start by identifying unique sounds like a strum of guitar or a beat of drums that frequently occurs. Then they make a dictionary of these unique sounds and they explain to you that each song in your collection is just a mix of these unique sounds. And for the third solution, it's just a combination of both. Not using superposition does not yield any good results, which is because models achieve lower loss by representing multiple features polysemantically than by representing a single feature and ambiguously and ignore the others. So while dictionary learning provides significant issues with overfitting, it still provides a more attractive interpretation and is more realistic in terms of actual usage than any of the above. So they use this weak dictionary learning algorithm called a sparse autoencoder to break down superpositions and generate singular semantic feature units from a trained transformer model. Then they tested on this one-layer transformer model with 512 nodes as a toy example. So you have this one-layer one-layer transformer with superposition, and after disentangling the polysemanticity with a sparse autoencoder and breaking down the features, the new expanded network should ideally be monosemantic, where every neuron contains its own feature only. But in reality, we cannot determine the true amount of features in total, so it's just a method to make the nodes more monosemantic for analysis. So in the blog, the largest sparse autoencoder they use has 512 times 256 nodes, which is to decompose the possible superposition features of 512 nodes this one-layer transformer can have. And being able to decompose it into different components would be the first step in achieving mechanistic interpretability. So they use around
You got all this? There will be a test.
100 billion tokens for training and got some pretty interesting results from the sparse autoencoder where they would represent purer concepts than neurons do. For instance, most of the 4096 features found by the autoencoder have consistent concepts that ranges from DNA sequence, HTTP requests, and legal text. What's even cooler is that if you artificially stimulate a specific feature, it'll steer the model's outputs in that specific way. For example, if turning on the DNA feature makes the model output DNA, turning on the Arabic script feature makes the model output Arabic script too. Some features are even interconnected as well to form a coherent semantic like a finite state automata, which can produce results that require complex behaviors. For example, there are features that work together to generate valid HTML, like there are features handling all the div, td, span, there are features for inserting signs, and there are features just provide the right indentations. To also understand the interface and the results they've got, this label beside the diagram or graph means that it is from model A, 0th dictionary run, and the 20th feature in that model. And by going to this link, you can then explore all the features that I've made for two models, A and B, where the learned sparse row is just the amount of nodes that the sparse autoencoder decided to multiply by. So by 8 times, there are 4096 features, and by 256 times, there are 131,072 features in total. And the more features they have, the more monosemantic they are. So these numbers are just the number of nodes the autoencoder has, depending on the desired level of sparsity and the complexity of the features to be extracted. So there are varied expansion factors which generate different number of features, all root from a one-layer transformer that only has 512 nodes. You can then click into each feature to explore what that feature does and how it's activated. And to understand the information about a feature, this diagram provides all the explanations you need. While this is not the only research on AI safety and alignment, it is still one of the most in-depth and interesting ones with easy to access data for to explore. The future of alignment may not be as bleak as the media portrays. And thank you for watching. A big shout out to Andrew Laschelian.
Okay, I understood just enough of that to like try and figure out what videos I would need to watch in order for all that to be explained to me. The point is, apparently, one of the biggest issues with AI is that the neural network exists in the black box. We don't know what's going on in there, and this gave us at least a glimpse of possible way to interpret what's inside the black box, which would be a big deal. All right, let's do this one.
If you've been on Microsoft's homepage lately, you may have noticed some interesting headlines from a conspiracy theory that the latest surge in COVID-19 is being orchestrated by the Democratic Party. Of course, that's not true, to an obituary calling a late NBA player useless. Our Donnie O'Sullivan has been looking into why. And Donnie, a lot of this comes down to company decisions on artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is just now seeping into everything.
Yeah.
And causing chaos, it seems.
And nowhere else, nowhere more so than Microsoft, apparently. I think a lot of people will say Microsoft News, but hundreds of millions.
Like, I'm part Irish. Respect to my Irish homies, but like, I just seem to see more and more Irish people on the internet lately. Like, there's like a few different leftists doing theory, and they're Irish. It's a whole thing. All right, homie.
Millions of people get their news from Microsoft, because if you buy a PC, a computer, that's your homepage very often, and there's news
What
there.
a Boyd. Everything will be on the quiz.
Up until 2018, Microsoft had 800 journalists working for them. Now, all that work is mostly done by AI. Have a look.
Wow. It felt like I was standing in line at the grocery store reading a National Enquirer, front page.
Ferris Kawar is talking about Microsoft's homepage, also known as MSN.com.
Is it artificial Irish? Is that what the I stands for?
It's among the top visited news websites in the US and around the world.
It's absolutely a huge site. It's installed on a lot of machines that come with Windows software on it, so people sometimes get that as a default as their news source.
But over the last few months, bizarre and false stories have begun appearing on MSN.com. False claims that President Biden fell asleep during a moment of silence after the Maui wildfire, an obituary that called a late NBA player useless, and a false story claiming a California politician had resigned after attacks by Elon Musk.
You had to be responsible in what you...
I'm really happy I missed all of those. I think I vaguely remember hearing something about the Biden falling asleep thing, but so I'm glad.
You put on the site, because so many people would read it and could be swayed by it.
Rin Pfeiffer was a contracted editor at MSN.com. Her job involved selecting stories from news outlets across the world to feature on Microsoft's site. She was one of more than 8.
And again, is this companies that create news programming, are they using their propaganda platform to platform against artificial intelligence doing the news? I keep seeing this weird, conflict between the news outlets and the artificial intelligence companies.
800 editors employed by Microsoft as of 2018.
I was there on and off for 8 years before I got laid off to be replaced by AI.
But in 2020, Rin and her colleagues were told they were losing their jobs. CNN obtained a recording of the call announcing the layoffs. Editors at Microsoft, they were told, were being replaced by AI automation.
It's kind of full steam ahead for automating all of the content.
Did you ever think you'd have a situation where you'd be replaced by AI?
No, not in a million years, but here we are.
MSN has agreements with major news organizations, including CNN, that allows it to put their reporting on its site. But recently, fringe right-wing sites have been featured prominently on its homepage, including headlines like these attacking President Biden.
Seeing what I'm seeing here with MSN is just scary to me. That can translate to tangible votes.
If they're going to have a front page that is all about news, then they should take that responsibility seriously and understand that it has implications for society.
After his computer's software updated, Ferris Kawar's default
So not some random guy. Currently, SMC sustainability manager. I mean, don't get me wrong. Seems like a nice enough dude. Switch careers from advertising to sustainability. I like that. Yeah. But it's that presentation, right? This is one of the things that people talk about with that Jubilee program that you might see people watching on Twitch, is that they present people as just regular folk, and they turn out to be like a mouthpiece for a particular, conservative organization, or they work for the Blaze or something like that. And I just feel like that's relevant. It's like, because they refer to him as Microsoft user, right? Like, how did this particular, I'm a Microsoft user, right? Like, you didn't contact me.
Homepage changed to Microsoft. That's when he began to notice something strange.
I think Microsoft is a fairly trustworthy company. I don't think of them as political in any way. The content that was being pushed definitely skewed to the right.
Bidenomics proved Joe Biden is a buffoon from American Insider. Yeah, that would not have been there before.
Rin Pfeiffer said she believes this is all happening because Microsoft replaced editors with AI.
I'm still appalled that they have these websites that seem like fronts. Like, that are not legit news sources pumping out this information on the homepage.
Let's keep AI under the control of people. It needs to be safe.
But Microsoft won't say how many people it has in control of its news AI. Rin said the editors who worked on her team, who were hired through a subcontractor, were all laid off.
What's the most important thing that our society needs to know at this point in our history, where an editor, a human, can make those determinations, and it really concerns me that AI is being used.
On Tuesday, the Guardian newspaper wrote to Microsoft President Brad Smith to express its concerns about Microsoft's use of AI. Microsoft published a story from The Guardian about Lily James, a 21-year-old who was found dead in Sydney, Australia. Microsoft then published an AI-generated poll next to the story asking readers, what do you think is the reason behind the woman's death? The Guardian CEO wrote in the letter, not only is this sort of application potentially distressing for the family of the individual who is the subject of the story, it is also deeply damaging to the Guardian's hard-won reputation for trusted, sensitive journalism. A day later, Microsoft said it had launched an investigation and shut off its AI polling feature. A spokesperson told CNN that in 2021, the company shifted to a system that picks stories by an algorithm. The spokesperson said, we are committed to addressing the recent issue of low-quality articles contributed to the feed and are working closely with our content partners to identify and address issues to ensure they are meeting our standards.
A lot of people don't dig deep and do their own homework to fact check anything, or they take things at face value. There's far too much of that, and so they read this and they take it as the factual truth.
So, Jim, as you can see there, Microsoft did not make a person available to speak to us.
Notice that.
Brad Smith, Microsoft's president, really is kind of on the lecture circuit around the world telling people how they should be responsible with AI. But as we can see here, Microsoft's own AI is messing up the news. And potentially as we go into election year, hundreds of millions of people, tens of millions of Americans still go to this website daily.
Yeah.
Could potentially play into the election.
And not to put a technical term on it, but it seems like AI generates a lot of crap.
A lot of crap. Hopefully our jobs are safe for a while.
A little while longer.
AI is not replacing all the journalists just yet. We hope.
And I think that puts a fine point on it, as there is some bias in motivation. What's this? Not that they're wrong. Like, I don't want to see any of that crap on MSN either, but like, we should always have people's motivations. Why are you telling me this? Not only what are you telling me?
The AI consciousness debate, more than meets the eye. Artificial intelligence, the golden child of the 21st century, now finds itself on the pedestal of wonder and debate. As systems like ChatGPT continue to stun us with responses that appear quite human-like, we are left to ponder. Are these systems on the brink of consciousness? When you read text, your mind consciously engages with the content. Yet, when AI like ChatGPT responds, is it truly perceiving our questions? Or is it a digital zombie processing input through intricate pattern matching? New research offers some illuminating perspectives. While it might be tempting to attribute a semblance of consciousness to these AIs, researchers posit a strong counter-argument. They remind us that today's AI misses out on the richness of sensory interactions with the physical world. They also lack the unique neural architecture we mammals have that's often linked to our conscious experience.
Neither of those two matter. Those are, I'm going to come right out and throw my nuts on the table and say that neither of those two matter. Like, just because we have a neural architecture that is often linked to our consciousness experience doesn't mean that that's the only way that consciousness can manifest itself. And the sensory interactions with the physical world is the embodiment argument, and ignores the possibility of rich sensory interactions with a simulated world, right? And again, I'm not saying that any of this AI is conscious. I don't even know that it matters up until the point where it is conscious, at which point in time, obviously how we interact with the conscious being changes significantly. But like, these arguments are questionable at best, in my opinion, and no one's listening to me in the philosophy of consciousness, other than Ivan Neo.
Furthermore, the evolutionary and developmental paths that birthed our consciousness are starkly different from the code that powers AI.
Again, that's not relevant, right? Like, this is a way that consciousness could develop. It does not mean that it is the only way. Like, that is a huge assumption on their part.
We exist and act based on millennia of evolved cellular intricacies leading to agency and awareness, something that's not easily replicated in code. But here's the kicker. The depth of consciousness in our brains hasn't even been fully grasped by science yet. We're still piecing together the neurobiological puzzle. It's essential to remember that the neurons firing away in our brains are very different from the neurons in AI. Ours are living, changing entities, while those in AI models are abstract code constructs. So while the leaps and bounds in AI are undeniably impressive, it's crucial not to lose sight of the complex beauty and intricacy of human consciousness.
Again, this seems a lot like magic human theory, right? Appeal to nature fallacy. Like, it can't be because it's not exactly like us. The AI is not AGI because it can't play banjo. All this stuff aligns.
Perhaps for now, let's relish the marvel that is the human mind and its unfathomable depths. What do you think about this research? Drop us a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more neuroscience.
Yeah. There's only 4 comments. First like, thumbs up, 1 from neuroscience, or at least that's what we perceive. We just don't know at what point consciousness begins to exist. So, yeah. And when is this from? 9 days ago. All right. Let's do some Wes Roth. Hi, Ferris.
So a couple of important things happen in the world of AI. Let's take a quick look. First and foremost, White House to unveil sweeping AI executive order next week. The main focus will be AI safety, but they're also tackling immigration, meaning that they're trying to get some more AI tech talent into the country. Make it easier for those people that are trying to get a work visa, those people that could benefit the big tech companies, to come over to the United States. Next up is this thing, Neural MMO Challenge. So for people that are not aware, MMO is massive, multiplayer online. Generally, they're RPGs, role-playing games where thousands, millions of people get together and play within these simulated worlds. World of Warcraft was probably the biggest, most well-known ones, but there are many, many others. This is that, but with AIs as the ones playing the game. So as you can see here, we have various defense things like helmet, armor, gloves, etc., various damage doing things, food, water, HP, etc. Here's the map, and we'll see the map in detail in just a second. We have various weapons to fight the enemies, fight enemies to gain armor and tools, as well as trade items on the market. And you can win $20,000. That's in real life in various prizes. The $20,000 is not simulated, I repeat. And so the objective is to train a team of 8 agents to complete tasks in a simulated world. So it's kind of like Dota, but instead of having a team of 5 players working together to take out the other team, you train 8 agents to go and complete these tasks on your behalf. Reinforcement learning track, design the algorithm, model, features, and reward. That's for your agents. And there's the unlimited compute if you provide your own compute. So it looks like you're given a fixed 8 hours on the A100, which is the powerful NVIDIA card, of training time per submission. I think I'm going to end up doing a full deep dive on this because this is interesting. I think this is where a lot of things are going, where basically we train a lot of these agents to complete tasks in those games because they will transfer to tasks outside of games as well with a few minor tweaks. It's easy to kind of research how.
Right? The rich sensory yada yada of a simulated world.
To do it well in the game and then try to apply that to the outside world. We're doing the same thing with robotics, by the way. A lot of these robots are being trained in a simulation and then those skills that they've learned transferred to the real world, and it's working effectively. So here's how the game looks like. Little blocky figures running around in their wizard hats and Viking helmets, etc. And here's a ruthless rogue, I would assume. And so if you want to check this out, go to AICrowd.com where they have all this information available. So you're able to use your LM agents. You can use GPT or some local LM to generate scripted agents. Anyways, it's pretty interesting, but we'll take a look at it once the competition starts. We'll take a look at how people are progressing. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see, especially if they have like different classes with different progressions, different dungeons, etc. The basic idea is so you pre-train an agent on certain tasks that are given to you. So for example, they give you an example dungeon, an example mining, whatever. We don't know the exact tasks. And so you use your whatever GPT powered agent or whatever to train them on those tasks. And then they get thrown into the real world where they have to solve a similar task, but unseen tasks. So tasks they haven't seen before, they haven't had a chance to practice before, let's say. And the goal is to create an agent that is able to solve those tasks effectively. But I'm sure we'll be hearing more about this. Next one, I found this interesting. So NASA open sourced a monster of a mega prompt. So this is for ChatGPT, for GPT-4, as far as I understand. And so this prompt, which we'll take a look at in a second, is designed to guide a user through the biomimicry design process. So I've seen this used every once in a while. It's still kind of rare because I don't think people know really how to do this effectively. But ChatGPT and other things like it can be very effective for fleshing out certain ideas. So if you give them the right prompt, they kind of become like someone that you can kind of bounce ideas off of. So you have an idea, they help you clarify it, they ask certain refining questions about it. And through that back and forth process, you can create a better idea. And you can specify what they are and are not allowed to do. So for example, maybe you want them to give suggestions, or maybe you don't. You only want them to ask clarifying questions. So once you specify that, then it becomes that sort of idea refiner, that wall to bounce ideas back and forth off of, whatever you want to call it. And then that process starts, and people have said this was very effective for them. One of the things was if you've tried the ChatGPT on your phone, you're able to talk back and forth with it now as a conversational assistant. Let's see if this works actually. I would like to bounce some ideas off of you, ask clarifying questions that help me. Let's say that I wanted to design an AI agent capable of doing a lot of online business tasks. Help me navigate through this concept and flesh out my idea a little bit better.
Absolutely. Designing an AI agent for online business tasks is a broad concept. So let's break it down. 1. Purpose and goals. What specific online business tasks are you aiming for? For instance, are we talking about tasks like email management, scheduling, customer support, or data analysis? What's the main goal? Is it to improve efficiency, reduce costs, or something else? 2. Integration. How do you envision this AI integrating with existing business tools? Would it work alongside current systems or replace them? Would the AI need to interact with other software or platforms, such as CRM systems, email platforms?
So actually, as I was doing that gives me some pretty good ideas. It helps refine what my thought process is. So as soon as he asked, like, what is the goal? Well, the goal is to automate a lot of the e-commerce stuff or whatever other online business that you're running. But if I was to redo that, maybe I'd say, hey, give me just a handful of questions about a subject and stop, let me answer them and keep going. But, some people have told me that what they do is they give ChatGPT that sort of prompt. They put their headphones in so that they're able to hear and talk back and forth, and then you go for a walk. And as they're walking, they're talking to it, and that stimulates that sort of free-flowing ideas that help them refine whatever.
And like, so one of the I'm bringing up my Audible. Bringing up my Audible. Oh, do. It's fun to watch like the evolution of like, because when I get into like nonfiction, there'll be like a series of books within that space, right? Okay. So there was a point where I was like into like brain stuff, right? So there's a book, Your Best Brain, The Science of Brain Improvement, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, Your Deceptive Mind, A Scientific Guide to Critical Thinking Skills. And then I went back into some economic and world history. Where is the great courses? Did it get pulled? I'd be mad. Anyways, in one of these, or maybe it is one of these. Oh, yeah, Your Deceptive Mind, A Scientific Guide to Critical Thinking Skills is the one that I was looking for. That's Stephen Novella. And in there, he talks about, like, if you just try to think of something and, like, kick it around in your brain can, like, hold that train of thought for, like, 7 seconds, something along those lines. But if you're having a conversation, it extends that context window out to, like, 20 seconds, right? So even if you are talking with this chatbot rather than another human being, you are engaging larger context windows within your own brain and are able to work through those things. And with the added benefit, because you're talking to ChatGPT will keep a written record of the entire conversation. And my favorite thing is that it names them. Like, when we look at where's my Google Keep? My Google Keep is just kind of like a collection. I always forget to name any particular thing. It's just a collection of whatever I'm into at the moment, and and I keep it there. And it's more like, I'm like Pepe Sylvia out here with this shit. But ChatGPT, I asked it about eating frozen meatballs because I didn't want to look. I was feeling lazy. What's the average between 100 and 1,000? 550, and like that. And then this is when I used ChatGPT to name my Githyanki character for Baldur's Gate 3. Whatever random shit, I love using ChatGPT. Somebody asked me if I was familiar with PSpice, which is a virtual electric circuit program, right? And simulation software. I had no idea what it was, so I asked ChatGPT. And then it gave me like how to start using, can you tell me how to make a schematic in PSpice? Of course. And then it gave me the step-by-steps. That kind of shit. Like, I'm all over the place with this thing. Yeah, but this is when I asked for a banana bread recipe, and then I asked for a variation adding strawberries, and this shit was the bomb. I have to make another one of those. That was really good. So, like, this is the thing, is with the verbal interaction, like you said, you put in your headphones and you go for a walk and you talk, and this way everything that you're talking about is recorded so you have it to reference later, but you're also in that free-form conversation space with extended context windows. It has value, baby.
Whatever concept they're working on. This could be for a book. This could be business. It could be anything. But here comes NASA, the super duper brainiacs, and they take this to the freaking moon, let's say. So 7 lessons from this genius level AI prompt. So what they're doing is they're kind of doing something similar. They're helping a user accomplish something. In this case, it's guiding a user through the biomimicry design process. And here are some of the things that before we look at the prompt, notice these things in the prompt. So interactivity, the prompt encourages an interactive dialogue between the user and the AI. Oh, here it looks like they use Bedera, not ChatGPT. So I apologize. Oh, it is ChatGPT. Bedera, or it's probably Bedara, is a ChatGPT-based chatbot that helps scientists and engineers learn from living things to create sustainable design and technology. Very interesting. All right, so it tells the AI to ask open-ended questions and then gives step-by-step guidance. So the prompt guides the user through the biomimicry design process in a sequential manner, which is good, dividing the process into digestible steps. It also gives an in-depth explanation of each step so that you know what is required, what kind of ideas are required, and then abstract thinking. So it uses the AI's natural ability to connect abstract ideas together. Then they have constructive analysis to critique the user's input. I feel this is important because I think a lot of us have trouble taking critique from other humans, especially if, there's some sort of a pecking order involved, right? If you're taking critique from somebody you're working with, they're a little bit of a competitor. That might not feel good. If they're a boss, that might be a little bit threatening, etc. I feel like an AI could tell me some pretty horrible things that I'm doing wrong, and I'll be kind of okay with it. I'll be like, yeah, you're right. I'll try to do better next time. And so the AI pushes the user to refine their work. It also cites sources that are, peer-reviewed, and it has applications to many different fields. So here's how the prompt starts. Now, this is a big, big prompt, which is interesting. So it starts with, you are Bedera, a biomimetic designer and research assistant, and a leading expert in biomimicry, biology, etc., etc., etc. And you're instructed by, us to learn from and emulate the strategy using by living things to help users create sustainable design and technologies. And so your goal is to help the user work in a step-by-step way and to cite peer-reviewed sources. Stop often at a minimum after every step to ask the user for feedback and clarifications. As we just saw, that was an important thing that I missed when I was prompting ChatGPT because it just kept going and going. It's like, here's 50 million things to think about. It's like, no, wait, stop at a minimum after every step to, ask for feedback. All right. So, and then it goes into details, define and frame the challenge, the context, and then we critique the user's design question. Does it consider context and take the system's view? Is it too specific? Is it too narrow? Now, just thinking about this being applied to if, the AI agent ChatGPT, if it can go and, query the internet at the same time to come up with examples. Like, I'm always thinking about how to apply this to business. So I'm not really in the biology field. So I'm kind of translating into the business language. Let's say you're trying to develop a new marketing strategy. You can say, okay, well, who out there is doing something similar that's within my, we're not talking about like a multi-billion or $1 trillion company. What's a multi-million dollar company, for example, that's doing something similar? And it goes, well, here's X, Y, and Z. Here's what they're doing. How could you be doing the same? Think about, do you have the resources to, make that happen, etc. But I mean, this prompt keeps going and going because it's very specific to that biomimicry thing that they're trying to do. And at the end, it looks like they're asking, how can this strategy inform our design solution? So it's helping the user figure out how to use nature's designs to incorporate them into, our own product design or the design of whatever thing that we're trying to create. How can we emulate nature and create a more life-friendly solution? And then we even give it nature's unifying patterns. Nature only uses the energy it needs and relies on freely available energy. Nature recycles all materials. It is resilient to disturbances. It tends to optimize rather than maximize. provides mutual benefits, runs on information, uses chemistry materials that are safe, and it builds using abundant resources, incorporating rare resources or only sparingly, and it's locally attuned and responsive, and uses shape to determine functionality. And that's really interesting. I mean, this mega prompt, I think, can be used for a lot of other things. I mean, businesses, if you're writing a book, if you're trying to create a whole universe, let's try, think about, Game of Thrones, right? So what's his name? George R.R. Martin, I believe, created this whole massive universe in his head with different factions and lands and conflicts. And then you have this zombie invasion and you have the dragons and you have this and that. Now you could sit down with something like this, or if you prefer to go for a walk and talk back and forth to it, do it with ChatGPT, put the headphones on and just go talk to it, give it that prompt, and it's going to walk you through, okay, think about this, think about that. What factions are there? What are the main characters? What are their personalities? What are the main conflicts? Do these characters know each other? Are they in conflict with one another? What is the sort of the climax of the story? What is the resolution, etc.? Maybe you can even ask like, hey buddy, if you're going to create like 50 million different storylines, how are you going to end this thing? How are you going to tie it all into an ending? Maybe start thinking about that before you go on this huge journey. You know what I mean? Because otherwise it could be a mess. Next on our list, we have a joke. What happens when 4 pastors, a rabbi, 13 academics, and 50 MBAs were asked whether they prefer the ethical solutions proposed by New York Times ethicists or ones proposed at GPT-4? People, in fact, prefer the ones proposed by GPT-4. That's not a joke. That's real life. So this says it's basically a tie, but looking at it, I wouldn't say it's a tie, because when forced to choose between the two sources of advice, people, they selected it 60% of the time. The AI generated advice, they selected as the preferred ethical solution 60% of the time.
Just like humans to weight it in there. It's basically a tie. I mean, it's 60-40, so it's basically a tie.
So I would say it's not a tie. GPT-4 wins. It beats out the New York Times ethicist. One other really cool thing that I saw is, so this is John Romero, rock and roll. John Romero is the guy one of the people that developed Doom and Quake and all those games alongside with John Carmack. Now, John Carmack has been a big influence in the tech field. He's working with Elon Musk, with Mark Zuckerberg, and actually recently he announced he's throwing the hat into the AI arena with the goal of developing AGI. He's saying it's unlikely that you're going to hear anything from him and his team for, at least a few years, because what they're working on are probably more fundamental things other than sort of the surface level exciting things. But what he says is that everything we need to develop AGI, artificial general intelligence, there's probably like 5 to 10 different concepts that when we understand them together will lead to that. So we'll see if he's right or not. It's certainly those are big claims, but I feel like he's the type of person that can probably pull it off. But John Romero was also a big part of that. He wasn't maybe not quite the technical level that John Carmack had, but he had the game design level, and he brought a lot of the things with him to the table. And recently he's been making more of a splash. He's been on the Tim Ferriss podcast. He just launched a book called The Doom Guy, I believe, and he's streaming more on Twitch, etc. So I'm not 100% sure exactly if he's just doing it for entertainment or he just wants to get a little bit more exposure online, or maybe he has some specific thing that he's trying to launch, but he's been popping in and out of my feed for a while. And here he says that his friend just launched a new course for beginner JavaScript game dev with AI. And you can check.
That's neat. Like, I don't particular, Doom was okay. But the fact that the guy who made Doom is streaming on Twitch, like, Twitch is a cool place. Like, there's a lot more going on here than I think a lot of people are, the loudest section isn't necessarily the best section. Let's say that. Apparently T-Pain is great on Twitch. So shout out T-Pain.
Check it out here. So I've tried some stuff on Udemy, and it can be, hit and miss, but every once in a while, there's some genuinely great instructors on there.
Welcome to Fast and Furious game development with JavaScript and AI. Draw text, reset ball, update paddle.
So one cool thing that really stood out to me is, so you can go here and you can preview some of the lectures, some videos that he has on it. But one thing that jumped out to me is he builds a game using generative AI, using ChatGPT.
Update ball. All right, some AI here.
And so here he looks like he's, putting in the comments his prompt for building various games. And then he's going back and forth and adding, hey, you forgot to do this, you forgot to do that. And so here he's saying that in about 20 minutes of work, he's able to create a working Pong game. And now he's going to start adding graphics or skins to it and various other features. Now, I'll leave it there for now. We have a lot more things coming. Stay tuned. Big things are dropping this week and the following week. So get ready for a barrage of videos because things are heating up. And I'm excited to be covering it here on this channel. So please subscribe and I'll see you next time.
Yeah, and that's was an older video, like a week or so ago, 2 weeks. I'm glad we added Wes Roth to the rotation. He's got a good voice, and now that like his videos are coming in at like in that 15-20 minute range, then like we can do more of that content. Let me just show you what I gotta go through, right? Just so that you understand. So if I type in here artificial intelligence, right? Not you. We already watched you. You're done. Okay. So it gives me a bunch of stuff. And then we filter, right? Like usually I filter like this week or today, depending on when's the last time I went to look. So let's just click on today and we'll see what we ended up with. SAG-AFTRA threw this into the mix. Top 5 AI certifications, not what we're about. This Forbes we watched, it was terrible. Here's somebody doing, a live, is AI going to take your job? Okay. Educators, cool. Like we're here. Now we get into some business stuff. And then here's the fight against AI. And then we get into art stuff, and there's a lot of art stuff. And then you start to get into t-shirt help desk. Yeah. I like it. I'm not watching it, but I like it. I don't know what's going on here. More Elon. There's a lot of Elon. What up, Social Deviant? Like, theoretically, I could build a bot to do it, but I do enjoy scrolling because I also want to see what I don't want to see, right? Like, I want to know, like on Twitter, even though I don't get involved in any of the drama, I need to know what the drama is so I don't accidentally step in it. That kind of thing. So I'm still in that space. I'd like to be in a place where I could just set the bot and it would gather the videos and then we could roll. So apparently, Rashmika, somebody did a deep fake. Fuck that person who did the deep fake. Here's something about jets. How Grimes is shaping it, and then the farther down you get, it starts to get, now we get into the vertical, or the verticals, right? There's a lot of AI shorts that come up. A lot of stuff from India. Here's I made an online course in PowerPoint for free. More shorts, more talk about the deepfakes, clickbait, thirst trap, a lot more stuff from India, a lot of business stuff, whatever the hell China produces world's first memristor chip, US doomed. Like, this is what I have to wade through and then we start to get into the, Johnny Depp out here doing the Lord's work and putting the whole AI movie up on YouTube, allegedly. So yeah, there's a lot to dig through. That's all I'm saying. Just so that you have an idea. It ain't fun. But it is fun. Because, again, yes, if I wanted to, I could make a bot and have the bot do it. But where's the fun in that, right? Then I won't know about the AI thirst trap, clickbait, US doomed. All right. I think we're done for today. 8:43, 3 hours, 43 minutes of good content, or at least decent content. Hey, Levelhead's on. We'll raid Levelhead. I hope you like Levelhead, because I like Levelhead. God damn it. All right. Levelhead is homie. And we'll be back Wednesday. Your first time here, hit that follow button. Hit the bell to stay notified. All that. Slightly rewarding experience from sifting through the interwebs for premium content. It is. Like, you got to remember, I'm old school in that regard. So there still is that dopamine from, like, when I scroll down through all that crap and then I find something that's like, oh no, this is actually good, and then like it resonates. Ferris. Back Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Unless something major jumps off, then we're going to start doing some practicals. We'll work with some Leonardo, we'll work with some ChatGPT, something like that, and we'll see what I'm in the mood for, what y'all are in the mood for, and, maybe we could do a little back and forth. And what'd be really cool is if I can talk to it and it talks back and, like, y'all can hear it. That would be dope. I just don't know if all that functionality is in there. In the meantime, drink your water, eat some food, take your meds if you forgot. Shoggy and Ferris loves you. So do I.